नन्दिनि नन्दितमेदिनि विश्वविनोदिनि नन्दिनुते गिरिवरविन्द्यशिरोदिनि वासिनि विष्णुविलासिनि जिष्णुनुते भगवति हेशिति कण्ठकुटुम्बिनि भूरि कुटुम्बिनि भूरि कृते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते सुरवरवर्षिणि दुर्धरदर्शिनि दुर्मुखमर्षिनि हर्षरते त्रिभुवनपोषिनि शङ्करतोषिनि किल्बिषमोषिनि घोषरते धनुजनि रोषिनि दितिश्रुतरोषिनि दुर्मथतोषिनि सिन्धुसुते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते
Hi guys, thank you for joining the live stream. Today we are back after a long time, and I won't be back probably before January again. I'll be off. But after a long time, we are doing a Sai Deepak discussion live stream. And after a long time, we are doing an English live stream even. So many things are happening today after many days. So let me know if the audio is coming fine. I think it is coming fine. Yeah. So Adiban, Jai Shri Ram. ऋषभ अग्रवाल क्रिसमस को सबका राम राम क्रिसमस का सबको राम राम बड़े भैया हमको फ्री फायर खेलना है इज दैट्स अ गेम राइट इट्स लाइक पबजी ओ द इंडियन वर्जन ऑफ पबजी राइट आर देसाई सेइंग जय श्री कृष्ण यस जय श्री कृष्ण श्रेयोदुति पोती is saying great podcast. I have seen that. Yes it is. Divya is saying the Mudgar is working like magic for me. Now I have no wrist pain. Feel kick stronger while right. The KICH is probably a typo, right, Divya? You can retype it and let me know what you actually meant. And Mudgar का क्या है कि Mudgar से strength जो बढ़ रहा है वो तुम्हारे बगैर और किसी को पता भी नहीं चलेगा कि तुम्हारा strength इतना बड़ा है, ठीक है? तो अच्छा तो much increasing strength, yeah. So Mudgar, Gada, these are not aesthetic equipments, no, aesthetic workout equipments. तो जो मान लो अगर कोई आदमी पूरा दिन सिर्फ मुदगर वर्कआउट्स ही करता है, ठीक है, वैरायटी ऑफ मुदगर वर्कआउट्स, ठीक है, मुदगर या गदा, वो आदमी को देख के रास्ते में कोई समझ भी नहीं पाएगा कि वो वर्कआउट भी करता है या सिर्फ ऐसे ही मोटा है. और अगर वो मतलब डाइट के वजह से if he deliberately goes on calorie deficit diets and maintains a body fat of like insanely fit people like 12%, 10%, only then it is possible. If you're not that bothered about your diet and about good looks and stuff, if you just go about your life eating as much as you want, whatever you want, and just focusing on strength, stamina that gets built up from your Mudgar and Mudgal workouts, no one will even understand that you are actually a insanely strong and fit guy. So if you are ready to sacrifice your aesthetics for real strength, then of course Mudgar is your best friend. Bangladesh and India border fence করা নিয়ে কি মত? বর্ডার ফেন্স তো হবে, ফেন্সের ফাঁক ফোকর দিয়ে তো লোক ঢুকবে, তো শেওড়া গাছের মাথায় স্নাইপার বসাও, কি আর করা যাবে? দাদা আইসোমেট্রিক এক্সারসাইজের উপর yeah it's great for lung endurances especially. Okay, so let's start. So this podcast again with ANI. Sai Deepak has done it again. Great argument after great argument, the force of nature that he is. And no matter what kind of vibes he gives to some people, that he might be too casteist, he might be too much of a trad. The problem is, unless he says those things outright, you must never assume. And if you do have some queries, just drop him a mail, call him on your podcast and ask him point blank that here's a hypothetical situation, and since you are a trad allegedly, would you want in this specific hypothetical context some powers to be not, or some facilities to be not given to a lower caste person? Or in this particular context, would you support or endorse this particular discrimination with a lower caste person? With those point blank statements, if he says no on record, then that's all you want, because in his heart, whether he's casteist or not, that is, that should not ever be your concern, because that's not going to translate into reality, because the things he goes on endorsing publicly are the things that people look up to him for. But I do know some actually casteist people also probably look up to Sai Deepak, because he gives off casteist vibes because of some things he says, the way he words some certain things. But he doesn't say those things really, because I never find them, at least. But anyway, today is another such point of agreement where I go on agreeing with him, even though I'm not a trad, and I find myself more in the, if at all there is a binary of Team Kushal Mehra versus Team Sai Deepak, I find myself more in the Team Kushal Mehra side. But then I don't really find too much to disagree with Sai Deepak as well. But of course, on whether every mosque should be looked under or not, there though I am in complete Sai Deepak camp. There I don't know what their problem is exactly. But anyway, let's start. Saptarshi, my opinion on Bruce Lee, Hayya Hayya, Kalaripattu is the same. That it's great for fitness, absolutely worthless for real combat situations and real fight situations. Fitness के लिए absolutely.
अब वो मॉस्क तोड़ के उसको टेंपल को रीबिल्ड करोगे, कितने रीबिल्ड करोगे?
जितने हो सके.
It could be Hindus who don't want any more bloodshed.
Why do they expect bloodshed? Who are they expecting it from? Why don't they answer the question?
Because when somebody makes a claim कि इसको तोड़ो फिर से
तो
बनाओ.
अब जवाब दो भाई कोर्ट में. हमें मतलब you prove us wrong in court. Evidence for evidence. Evidence के जवाब में तलवार क्यों उठ रहा है भाई यहाँ पे?
But what if the Muslim community turns around and say कि तुमने यहाँ पे रेल भवन बनाया, रेल भवन के नीचे हमारा मदरसा हुआ करता था.
A.K. Brahmo, if one is a budding debater, who do you think? Eric Garcetti or JSD? No, from JSD you might not be able to learn actual debating skills, because he's not really talking about that ever. No, for that I think your best book would be Ben Shapiro's book, a small 35 page book. Okay, it's called How to Debate Leftists and Destroy Them.
ये
ठीक है,
तो
उसके नीचे क्या हुआ करता था ये भी देख लेते हैं.
What is happening with regard to Sambhal, places of worship, act, works, sense of.
Yeah, Divya brings this up pretty early on in the live stream, so चलो clear कर ही लेते हैं कि ये bloodshed वाला argument क्या है? What is even the argument? I don't understand. How can a legit, though, see, if my leftist friends who have said that no, you should not do this and that because it will antagonize Muslims, and because of which I say that, remember, Bengalis are probably the biggest Islamophobes in the whole world, because go to any Bengali family, especially in left-leaning to leftist families in Bengal, and start talking about Islamic history, Islamofascist history, etc. And the first thing that elderly relatives in your family will say is that, hey, lower your voice, speak in a lower voice. So that's a 500, 600-year-old fear that has been ingrained in our Bengali relatives' veins. Okay. And in fact, our longtime viewer Ninar corroborated that, yes, that's happened to him as well, even though he's not remotely Bengali. Okay. तो उसके वजह से, ऐसे सिचुएशन के वजह से, अगर कोई लेफ्टिस्ट फ्रेंड आके मुझे बोलता है कि why do this and that because it will antagonize Muslims, etc. So I can still understand, because they are not really speaking as a public personality. But Smita Prakash, Abhijit Mitra, Kushal Mehra, they speak as public personalities, and I don't think they have really brought up this argument, that the bloodshed argument. So to be fair to Kushal and AIM, they have not brought up this argument. But Smita Prakash saying this is very weird. I guess she's just playing devil's advocate. Who knows? तो devil's advocate खेलना ही है, नहीं तो बढ़िया podcast होगा भी नहीं. But I don't think this argument even deserves a response. के bloodshed होगा तो कोई भी डिमांड के लिए ब्लडशेड अगर दिमाग में रखे तो पुलिस का सैलरी हमको दे दो.
Of anxiety that are we heading into a period of social unrest?
If a lawful legal proceeding and action is brought to a grinding halt under the fear of stone pelting, what does it say about your aspirations of becoming a Vishwaguru? I don't understand the constant chest humping about Hindutva and Bharat without having the courage to actually reclaim the spirit of Bharat.
And the mosque also spirit of Bharat?
I agree. But as long as
I agree. By आदमी on camera on record, one of the biggest podcasts in the world पे बोल रहा है कि yes, even mosques are part of the spirit of Bharat. And remember when I was debunking the idea of him being casteist, the things he said on Aditya Dhar's podcast, along with the other right-wing guest, I don't remember his name. He works with temple reclamation and stuff. So there also Sai Deepak said that if you don't really want to follow the traditional caste system or the orthodox way of caste life, etc., even then you have so many sects to follow, like BAPS, ISKCON, Arya Samaj, etc. Groups who are hated by actual trads. Sai Deepak was saying that if you want to be Hindu, you don't like so-called casteism, etc. Not so-called, maybe actual even casteism. Even then, it's perfectly fine for you to do that. Join those sects. It's not like he's saying that no, you have to be a true Hindu, you have to be truly casteist, only then you are a Hindu. तो उसके बाद वो दिमाग में अंदर से मन की गहराई में उसके भावनाओं में कास्टिज्म है कि नहीं, वो जान के मैं क्या करूं.
they are not on occupied sites.
Talapati Vijay, how do you see his rise?
After Kamal Hassan's failure, he may have been somebody's plan B.
Asaduddin Owaisi, his politics.
He knows how to present his position, which is favorable to his community, within the four corners of the constitution. That is always a tough game to play, and he does it reasonably well.
Namaste Jai Hind, you're watching or listening to another edition of the...
Avdut Nidhi asks whether it's morally right or not. Morally, though, it's even more right. Legality comes second, I think, to all humans. Maybe not in the practical, let's say, final actions, of course. In that, legality comes first and foremost in the end. But in your mind, I think it's always whether it's moral or not. And then you are bothered with whether it's legal or not. So I think, yes. So on morality side, there's no question at all.
ANI podcast with Smita Prakash. In the studio with me today is Sai Deepak, who's appeared twice on the podcast before. But today the conversation will mainly center around the Supreme Court order on the Places of Worship Act 1991. The Supreme Court has recently barred civil courts across the country from registering fresh suits challenging the ownership and title of any place of worship, and from ordering surveys of disputed religious places until further orders. Now, junior courts cannot order a survey or seek a report from the Archaeological Survey of India, as have been done in several recent instances. In May 2022, after the Babri Mosque Ram Janmabhoomi case reached the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice of India, D.Y. Chandrachud, orally observed that a survey may not necessarily fall foul of the Places of Worship Act. And then, between 2022 and 2024, at least 6 suits were filed claiming past existence of a Hindu temple at the site of a mosque or dargah. Surveys were ordered in 3 of these cases. With the latest Supreme Court ruling, let's get a clearer picture of what is the way forward for those fighting for pre-existing temples. Over to Sai Deepak. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
So we've had you before on the show.
Twice.
Right. So I think one was on your book.
Yes,
when it had come, and the second one was probably
Sanatana Dharma statement of
Sanatana Dharma,
September.
and also I think elections coming up and that happening. So this time I thought of you and I wanted to talk about the constitutional debate that was happening in Parliament, so much happening and things. I wanted to talk about that because that is also...
No, Divya, don't fall into the trap of hyperbole, because then your core arguments will become weaker, because hyperbole is a very easy and fun and juicy game to play, no? So therefore, as a well-wisher of yours, I'm saying that don't fall into the trap of hyperbole. No, Muslim kings are not more moral than leftists of today, because they would chop your heads off, skin you alive, take out your eyeballs and stuff. 99.99 leftists today are not doing those things. Maybe they would endorse those things because do you know what Brahmins did? Or maybe they would like to do those things, but unless they're doing it, which stuff that Muslim kings were, they are more moral than Muslim kings, Islamofascist kings of yesteryears.
So your forte, but what is disturbing a lot of people, especially youngsters, is about what is happening with regard to Sambhal, Places of Worship Act, Waqf, all this coming up, and a sense of anxiety that are we heading into a period of social unrest?
I think your audience deserves honesty. Therefore, let me, for the benefit of their consumption, disclose the fact that I represent the Kashi royal family in the proceedings there. So obviously, I've chosen a side, and considering the fact that the matter is sub judice, I'll keep my comments tempered on the subject. But nevertheless, what already exists in public domain through my articles and speeches, I think I can speak on that. So the optics of it, or the social unrest part of it, if a court order of a survey incites violence or results in unprovoked violence, or the court order itself is seen as a provocation, then there is a problem in the manner in which the Indian state's exclusive claim over the monopoly of violence or force has been challenged. You can't even enforce a court order. And two, if a lawful legal proceeding and action is brought to a grinding halt under the fear of stone pelting, what does it say about your aspirations of becoming a Vishwaguru?
Okay.
What exactly are you projecting by way of strength? If you can't project strength internally, don't hope for others to take you seriously outside. Three,
Smita ma'am seemed a little uncomfortable.
the action, in my limited submission, since the matter is prejudice, the subjudice, is perfectly legal. And I said as much in court. So let's see how it plays out. I'll keep my powder dry for the court. Without getting into the legality of it, I believe it is legal. There are articles to this effect that I've written. But I think constitutional institutions owe their allegiance to the law, to the constitution, and they should simply ask themselves whether these proceedings must be held hostage under the shadow or threat of violence. I hope they won't be. And two, what does it do to the rights of all those parties who have a right under the law to initiate these proceedings? That is the basic question. See, if social unrest becomes the barometer for any action, कोई भी
Right.
किसी को पैसे देके 40-50 लोगों को इकट्ठा करेगा
Yes.
और पत्थर फेंकना शुरू
और वैसे यही भोसरी के स्टेट इंसेंटिवाइजेशन भी ऐसा ही है कि हमेशा हमेशा के लिए थोड़ा लोग इकट्ठा करो, हो गया काम, कुछ भी चीज पे प्रोसेशंस करते रहो, हो जाएगा. That's all that the state responds to in India.
शुरू करेगा. That immediately questions the law and the legal action. ऐसे थोड़ी होगा. That can't be the barometer, the yardstick for it. Three, I genuinely hope that this matter is heard quickly and it is decided regardless of reactions of any section of the public or community from whichever side. Decide it on merits. Deal with it on merits. Let's apply the black letter of the law along with its spirit and ask ourselves whether what has been happening in the context of Kashi and Mathura are truly unconstitutional or illegal or impermissible or so on and so forth. Let's test that.
But it's not just
Yeah, Rishabh. तो दैट इज द फैक्टर कि जिस कारण से फार्म लॉज और सीए नहीं अप्लाई हुआ है, कुछ लोगों का मानना है, एटलीस्ट मे बी स्मिता प्रकाश वाज जस्ट प्लेइंग डेविल्स एडवोकेट, बट कुछ लोगों का मानना ये जरूर है कि उस सेम रीजंस के वजह से अब तुम टेम्पल रिक्लेमेशन भी मत करो, नहीं तो डंडे पड़ जाएंगे, नहीं तो पत्थर पड़ जाएंगे, इसलिए मत करो. लॉजिक, एनलाइटमेंट, रैशनल, क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग, रैशनलिटी, ये सब गया अब 5 मिनट के लिए गड्ढे में. अब सिर्फ और सिर्फ वरी अबाउट द स्टोन्स बीइंग पेल्टेड. इसके लिए हम पीएचडी लिए थे सोशल साइंस में, इसके लिए हमको बोला जाता है कि थिंक रैशनली, थिंक क्रिटिकली, इसके लिए लोग एथिस्ट बनते हैं ताकि हम सिर्फ और सिर्फ स्टोन पेल्टिंग को अपना मेन फैक्टर सोच ले while discussing policy. What the actual fuck?
just Kashi Mathura. Now there are so many. The lower courts admitted several.
So
it's going to be several of them. And now
So, yeah, bhai, and Smita Prakash, whether or not she is playing devil's advocate, well, at least she has created a situation where Sai Deepak is saying so, and it's coming across as a heroic statement even. And of course, Sai Deepak को कोई हीरो बनाओ, मुझे उससे कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, बट Sai Deepak को हीरो बनाने के लिए उसके और भी बहुत बढ़िया कारण है, बढ़िया डायलॉग्स है, कोट्स है. ये जो सो बोला जा रहा है, दिस इज अ वेरी स्मॉल थिंग के मतलब ऐसा भोसरी के सिचुएशन है, ऐसा ऑब्वियस चीजों में क्वेश्चन किया जा रहा है कि हम और क्या बोले कि ये क्या प्रश्न है. आई नेवर थॉट that this would have been a qualm of any Hindutvadi in India, that temple reclamation mat karo. ये क्या statement है? And these questions that there are too many temples to reclaim. तो इसमें तो सो ही बोलना है. I hope you are getting my point that obviously Sai Deepak comes across as very cool for saying this, but it doesn't even have to be that. Why is he being put into such a situation where he has to say so? That why is that a factor? I'm absolutely flabbergasted with this situation.
now they can't.
Right.
Because there's a stay now.
that I agree. See, let's look at the biggest bogey that's constantly cited. एक खोला तो कितने खुलेंगे?
हाँ.
You're opening the flood.
ये जस्टिफाई करने के लिए जय साई दीपक को लाने का जरूरत ही नहीं है. दैट इज माय पॉइंट. जय साई दीपक इज वेल अबव दिस इडियोटिक डिस्कोर्स व्हिच इज मेनली इनसाइड द हिंदुत्व सर्कल्स. तो इसके लिए भाई हमारे चैनल से 4-5 आदमी को भेज दो, सबको कन्विंस कर लेंगे. But another thing I want to point out is, which is a bit of a digression, that the main reason you all need to read Jai Sai Deepak's second book, India Bharat Pakistan, okay, is not because of even Jai Sai Deepak's own writings. वहां पे Jai Sai Deepak का खुद का बात बहुत ही कम है. It's mainly citations. वहां पे ना I'll do readings of these letters and stuff. वहां पे जाके mainly read the speeches given by Sir Syed Ahmed Khan. वो भी मैं rank 3 में रखूंगा. Mainly read the phenomenal articulations of someone called Syed Amir Ali. Everyone in Kolkata has heard of him because there's a famous street by his name. It's called Syed Amir Ali Avenue. He was one of the proponents of partition and उनके नाम पे proudly रास्ता है कोलकाता में. तो शायद आमिर अली का जो राइटिंग पे ग्रास्प है, मैं तो बोलता हूँ भाई इंग्लिश लिटरेचर क्लास में सावरकर और शायद आमिर अली पढ़ाओ, सब लोग अच्छे राइटर्स बन जाएंगे और आर्टिकुलेट करने लगेंगे अपने पॉइंट्स. कितना क्लैरिटी है, कितना ब्यूटीफुल वे ऑफ राइटिंग है और कितना फोकस्ड और डायरेक्टेड है. शायद आमिर अली बोल रहा है कि हमारा कोई प्रॉब्लम भी नहीं है हिंदुओं के साथ, हमको ऐसे ही चाहिए देश अपना. तो क्योंकि हम हैं मुसलमान, मुसलमानों को अपना देश चाहिए होता है हर जगह पे, इसलिए चाह रहे हैं. इट्स नॉट बिकॉज वी हेट हिंदूज इवन. तो जय साई दीपक आई थिंक इज of course he has written that book, so he pretty much knows what are the sources of the arguments from the other side. Okay, so I would suggest you all to read definitely at least these two people, Nawab Salimullah Khan of Dhaka and someone called Syed Amir Ali. These two people have been quoted extensively in India Bharat Pakistan. And then read the speeches of Sir Syed Ahmed Khan, what kind of words he uses for the Muslims who took part in revolt of 1857, what kind of things he says for Bengalis and stuff. वो सब दूध का दूध पानी का पानी हो जाएगा. बट फॉर ऐसे बुक लिखने के लिए जैसा दीपक को मतलब जैसा दीपक के फैंस बनो, मगर अब ये घटिया डिबेट्स के लिए जैसा दीपक को ना पड़ रहा है, वो दैट्स हिलेरियस.
Floodgates to what? Floodgates to what? Reclamation. And I don't understand the constant chest thumping about Hindutva and Bharat without having the courage to actually reclaim the spirit of Bharat. And I've said this before, that if the Supreme...
And the Mass also spirit of Bharat?
I agree, but as long as they're not on occupied sites.
That is where the dispute occurs.
That is where the dispute occurs. So what are we saying? See, the Supreme Court itself, through its verdict of the Ayodhya case, on which I have certain disagreements, has shown the path. A party which has lost was given land by the Supreme Court when it doesn't deserve to be given land.
Yeah, that's what he disagrees with in the Ram Janmabhoomi case.
You have enough property through Waqf property, and you're anyway claiming more. The rest of Bharat also. You keep building there. It is possible to simply evolve a process of exchange, which, although is not necessary or required, you can do this in the interest of peace. But if you wish to retain an occupied site, knowing fully well that it has a seriously contentious history and history that goes against you, and you still hold on to it, how do you expect an awakened Bharat to respond to it when history is beginning to resurface? Pun intended.
How many places will you keep saying that this is occupied, that is occupied? How are you going to say it? Because what you said once is that there are 4,000 sites.
Actually, I said 40,000.
40,000.
That figure could have been exaggerated. But what did I say? We spoke of one wasn't acceptable. We spoke of three, it wasn't.
Whether it's 40,000 or 40 million, that is not the question at all. यही किसी के दिमाग में नहीं घुसता है. जहां जहां किसी को सस्पिशन होगा, वहां पे केस फाइल होगा, वहां पे डिग अप होगा. तो और नहीं तो हमारा टैक्सेस सब बंद कर दो, एएसआई वैसा ही बंद कर दो, खुद का कोई थर्ड पार्टी हम आर्कियोलॉजिकल सर्वे भी ढूंढ लेंगे, प्राइवेट, पूरा लिबर्टेरियन आर्कियोलॉजी. मगर ये 40,000 एग्जैक्ट नंबर ये ठीक है भी नहीं. ये आई डोंट थिंक जैसा दीपक नोज, इवन ही इज सेइंग दैट माइट नॉट बी अ करेक्ट नंबर. Fair enough. The first time I went to the Vishwa Hindu Parishad bookstall in Kolkata Book Fair, after turning right-winger by reading Sanjeev Sanyal's books, that's where I bought my first Sitaram Goel book. Even there, I asked them that where is, just show me, I want to buy Sitaram Goel's books on destroyed Hindu temples. One elderly gentleman said that that we don't have that book at the moment, but if you want to know the number, I can tell you it's 40,000. So there's this myth of 40,000. It's sort of a truism among boomer right-wingers that there are 40,000 that need to be reclaimed. So it's not a real concern at all whether it's actually 40,000 or not. जहां जहां दिखेगा, जहां पे कंसर्न होगा, जहां कोई किसी लॉयर को हायर करेगा, वहां पे ही केस होगा. 40,000 हो, 40 हो, 40 million हो.
Acceptable. I said, then if negotiation has no room here, then why will I limit the scope of my claim? मांगना है तो सारा मांग लो अभी. What is the point?
कि कुछ तो मिलेगा.
And the weirder argument that Smita Prakash actually doesn't bring up here is that you might find Buddhist temples beneath. Who the fuck gives a fuck? When have Hindus ever had a problem with Buddhists in recent fucking memory? Maybe some JNU guy can make up some stuff, but it's always every like, and you must judge this from the let's say the poorest of Hindus, okay, because they are usually the most devout, because they need God the most because of poverty and for jobs and stuff. They treat God as everything, an all-encompassing mysterious person looking at them from the sky and stuff. They don't even need religion for spiritual upliftment, really, right? So even those people always have reverence for Buddha. तो अगर कोई बुद्धिस्ट मोनेस्ट्री या टेम्पल मिल भी गया टेम्पल के नीचे, उससे एग्जैक्टली क्या होगा? आई डोंट गेट इवन दैट. We'll just know more interesting facts about history.
Exactly. And not just that. Kuch to milega is a different issue.
Yes, actually, Divya, Sai Deepak himself had clarified this in a Twitter debate 2 years back, that तो जब भी हिंदू मंदिर का बात आता है तब कोई ना कोई लेफ्टिस्ट आके बोलता है कि नहीं भाई नीचे तो बुद्धिस्ट टेम्पल है, तो तुम केस फाइल करो, तुम्हें कौन रोक रहा है? अजीब बात है.
At the very least, the history of each of these places needs to come out. People should know Ram Janmabhoomi was not isolated. People should know Kashi was not isolated, and people should know this was not exactly a northern-centric phenomenon across the board.
Tipu.
100%. Tipu at so many places. I think in Warangal, so many temples, Shakti Pitas are there. Therefore,
Kashmir.
What exactly? And Kashmir is also in the 90s, for God's sakes. Not just, you're not talking about the medieval ages. So what these proceedings do is to give you an opportunity to present evidence, which unfortunately haven't found their way into textbooks. It will generate a discourse. Hopefully it should trigger introspection. I have a slightly mixed position on the question of jati, but nevertheless, if the history of so-called
कोई कास्टिस्ट यहाँ पे शायद खुश हो गया.
called caste and its, let's say, related behavior have constantly found reference in our public discourse and, let's say, in our textbooks and every other place, and there are policies to that particular effect which are trying to redress a certain grievance. Tell me, why does the logic of that position change in the context of religion? Answer the question. The position is repair. It's reparative justice. It's not retributive justice, right? It is to ameliorate certain social, let's say, social behavioral patterns. Now, how much of it is based on, let's say, actual history? That's a different question altogether. But nevertheless, the Indian state seems to have taken that position for granted. Why does it want to take a different position in the context of inter-community relations when it doesn't have a problem taking that position in intra-community relations? So divide the Hindu and deprive the Hindu of his opportunity to reclaim his rights as well. That can't be the strategy. So you constantly talk about jati, caste reservation, keep us divided. And when it comes to the other side, secularism will prevail. Ye thodi ho sakta hai. Therefore, my position is very clear. The Indian state, by now, should have constituted a commission for...
And to be fair, he was using this just as an analogy because it would be a good way to counter Smita Prakash's devil's advocate questions. But even if there was no reservation, even that shouldn't stop us from temple reclamation, by the way. Remember? Okay. It has nothing to do with anything else. टेम्पल है, especially भाई ये भी मुझे बोलना है कि कुछ I guess I can call them far right legitimately because मतलब पॉलिसी में शायद far right नहीं है, मगर इतने गांडू है कि they think only being a far right is the only option and stuff. तो इंडियन लॉज में इतना मटेरियल है कि तुम यहाँ से अच्छे से पूरा स्टेबल एक सेफ हिंदू कंट्री चला सकते हो. तो जैसे कि प्लेसेस ऑफ वर्शिप एक्ट में जो जैसा दीपक यहाँ पे पॉइंट आउट करेंगे, जो एक ब्रिलियंट एक क्लॉज है which Sanjay Dixit was the first one to point out, and I remember that forever, and I knew from that very moment that we never need to kick out the places of worship act at all. But almost every right-wing influencer kept on saying that why are these evil laws existing in India, including places of worship act? ऐसा भोसरी के घटिया लॉ बना दिया है हम हिंदुओं पर. प्लेसेस ऑफ वर्शिप एक्ट में ऐसे चीजें हैं जिससे तुम्हारा टेम्पल रिक्लेमेशन कोई नहीं रोक सकता है, ठीक है. बट another example is that wait, I forgot the point. Let me just get it from here.
Therefore, my position is very clear. The Indian state by now should have constituted a commission for truth, reclamation, and reconciliation, which it has not had the courage of its conviction to do in all the.
Thank you, Kaladin. This is my point. तो यही लॉ है कि once a temple, always a temple. Once a प्राण प्रतिष्ठान has been done, once the ceremony has been done, वो लीगली टेम्पल ही है. यही है इंडियन लॉ. ये है हमारा सो कॉल्ड मैकॉले का घटिया देश का घटिया लॉ. ये लॉ बोल रहा है कि अगर एक बार वहां पे मंदिर स्थापित हो चुका है, वो मंदिर का ही जगह है. You can't change that law. You can, of course, you can't screw with that law at the moment. You can't ignore that law. Okay. Similarly, in the Places of Worship Act, कि उसका तुम रिलीजियस कैरेक्टर जज करो. 100 साल से अगर पुराना हो तो तुम, अगर 100 साल से पुराना हो तब तो वैसे भी you can do a lot of stuff. But वो रिलीजियस कैरेक्टर तुम जज करो. रिलीजियस कैरेक्टर तुम नहीं चेंज कर सकते हो. And Sanjay Dixit went a step ahead and said that this might have been Narasimha Rao's way of doing something for the future generations, which he at that position was not in a position or situation to do. कि अगर तुम्हें लग रहा है कि ये मस्जिद है और किसी को लग रहा है ये मंदिर है, दोनों में डिबेट होगा और रिलीजियस कैरेक्टर डिसाइड होगा. रिलीजियस कैरेक्टर जो है वो ही रहेगा. अगर रिलीजियस कैरेक्टर में दिखता है कि मूर्तियों के डिजाइन वगैरह है या फिर कहीं पे कोई मूर्ति ही है, तो लीगली वो टेम्पल हो गया, क्योंकि मूर्ति का अगर कॉन्सिक्रेशन हो गया है, प्राण प्रतिष्ठाना हो गया है, तब तो और तुम कुछ नहीं कर सकते हो, वो मंदिर है. And so I need to clarify this for low IQ Hindutvatis again, that which means that at that point the Places of Worship Act is the act that would save that temple from going on or being converted legally to a mosque, because उसका religious character है हिंदुइज्म का, टेम्पल होने का, मंदिर होने का, जो रिलीजियस कैरेक्टर तुम चेंज नहीं कर सकते.
These years, even now, do it, set out a clear policy, ask yourself, here's the simple thing. Before the farm laws were asked to be stayed or not implemented by the Supreme Court.
Stop talking about casteism as if everything revolves. It pretty much does in India.
The question that was put to the government was, did you speak with these parties, the affected parties? Did you undertake a wide-ranging consultation? Now, here's the question. Before the Places of Worship Act was brought into effect, I think in 1991, how many affected parties on both sides were consulted? Was a baseline study undertaken to find out how many such existing disputes are pending in courts, or there are existing claims even outside of courts? As long as you've not done that study, it's a knee-jerk reaction. Now, let's go to the next step. Why does Ram Janmabhoomi deserve an exceptional treatment through non-application of the Places of Worship Act, which exemption is not available either to Kashi, Mathura, or any other temple? Isn't that discrimination according to the Constitution? So,
what did the court say then? Why was it special? Why was it different?
The court did not say anything to that effect. So here's what happened. And just pardon me here, I'm going to get slightly academic here, but I think it's important. We are being told constantly in public discourses and other places that the Ayodhya verdict itself has taken a position on the Places of Worship Act. And therefore, the challenge to this act is meaningless, because apparently that judgment has given a stamp of approval to the act and its constitutionality. Okay? We are being told you can't challenge this because the Constitution bench has already said this is a perfectly constitutional act. Point number one. The constitutionality of the Places of Worship Act was never an issue in the Ram Janmabhoomi case.
Yeah, why?
Because the act says, section 5 says that this dispute is outside the purview of the application of this act.
Yeah, because it was pre-1991.
Not just that. According to them, they've just said, see, that the reasons for it we don't know.
They said no, that it was already in court before the 1991.
Then what about, let's say, okay, the only fact of the matter is there was a pending litigation, so to speak, since 1858. But the fact of the matter is the provision says this is exempt, right? If the provision says that the act exempts its application to this dispute, that means there is no reason to discuss the act in the context of the dispute. So the law basically says, and this is from the Supreme Court, no finding of the court on an issue which is not an issue before it in a particular case is binding. मुद्दा आपके सामने खड़ा ही नहीं हुआ किसी, let's say, case में. Your observations in that regard are what we call obiter dicta, marginal observations, non-binding observations, no precedential value. Okay, so for whatever it's worth, those findings do not come in the way of a challenge because they are obiter dicta.
Unless you are Pranav Mukherjee and do retrospective taxation.
Second, as far as the trigger for the discussion in the Ayodhya judgment itself, you'll be surprised at what has happened. 3 judges pass a verdict, a 2-1 verdict in Allahabad in favor of the temple side in the context of Ram Janmabhoomi. One of them, I think, is Justice Sharma. I think there are 2 Hindu judges. One is Justice Sharma, Justice Agarwal, and I think it's Justice Khan. So one of them so one of those judgments of the 3 judges becomes the trigger for the Supreme Court to take it up. Now, why does the Supreme Court take it up here? Supreme Court says, in the 3-judge verdict, the Places of Worship Act has been discussed by the lower court or by the Allahabad High Court. Therefore, we will have to decide or we'll have to adjudicate upon it. The single judge, or let's say the judge of the Allahabad High Court as part of the 3-judge bench, never discussed the Places of Worship Act at all. He was quoting a 95 judgment of the Supreme Court to say that it is possible to enforce rights under Article 25 through standard suits. And in that judgment, in the extracted portion, there is a reference to Places of Worship Act. That extraction is there in the Allahabad High Court judgment. The Supreme Court mistakes this extraction to be a finding of the judge of the Allahabad High Court, when in fact he was merely quoting it. There was no such issue for him to even decide on. And then for 10 pages, the Supreme Court discusses the Places of Worship Act, saying he has decided or he's returned a finding. So we too have to comment on this particular issue. It's actually based on a proper clerical error. Proper clerical. And I wrote an article to this effect in 2020, within 6 months of the judgment. And I wrote 2 pieces on my blog called Yukti, immediately after the judgment, saying there is a very glaring error here. There's no reason for this discussion to have taken place either legally or even factually. After I published this article in a particular portal, check out which portal this is, they asked me to stop writing. They asked me to stop writing. Until then, they were literally after me saying, "Ek column to likh do, hafte ke liye likh do." This is what they said. And after they said, "Thoda zyada ho gaya." I said, "What was wrong in this?"
Kafi ho gaya, zyada ho gaya. Now, Eke Brahmo, if it was a temple destroyed by Turks and Turks built a mosque on top of that, can Hindus occupy that mosque and convert it into a temple? You don't even have to occupy. You just need a lawyer to file a case and ask for the ASI to do a survey. And if the ASI can in fact prove, see, if it's a mosque where the let's say last nishanis of the temple have been completely wiped out, there are no nice Shiva Parvati drawings on the or carvings on the walls, there are no shivlings to be found underneath, then you are done. तो तुम अगर रिलीजियस कैरेक्टर प्रूव ही नहीं कर पाओ और सिर्फ हियरसे के बेसिस पे तुम ये मतलब केस करो, तब नहीं होगा. If you can prove it visually, then yes.
So therefore, there is no constitutional bar. There is no judgment that effectively shields this act from any challenge. But the best possible position I am taking, or even Vishnu is taking, and which is on record, is
the Kashi.
No, just on the act. Act को रहने दो.
Act को क्यों रहने दो? यही अब हम सुनेंगे. उसके पहले मुझे इसमें उत्तर देना है. Finance Bro is asking why BJP in West Bengal don't bring up issues like that Mandir in Pandua or Adinath Mandir, just like the way BJP brought up. So, Finance Bro, what is the one in Pandua? Is it the what's the name of the oldest mosque in West Bengal? That's also used to be a mandir, I have heard, and I have heard from a non-right-wing source in a book that there are carvings of Ramayana and Mahabharata inside the mosque complex, and even Muslims go there and do pranam and stuff. Okay, so what's that something Dera Ghazi Khan, Dera Ghazi Khan Mosque in Howrah, I think that's the oldest mosque in West Bengal, and it used to be a mandir allegedly, and Adinath Mandir, of course, Adina Mosque in Malda or Murshidabad. So I used to believe, as a third party, far removed observer and a curious guy with a Wi-Fi, that in order to win, BJP must bring up Hindutva issues and not bad roads and water is not coming, etc., daily retail stuff. Okay, so then I stopped believing that, because I saw BJP's immense election winning capabilities elsewhere. So I thought maybe, okay, these guys just have figured their shit out. They are so sorted in their election winning vision that I guess they are right to do it. And every state needs to be won differently. So in West Bengal, they might have thought that these things don't work. So let's just fight for roads and stuff. But I always had a hunch that, see, after all, we are a nation with $2,400 GDP per capita. How much of roads are going to be great in every BJP run state, everywhere in that state? How much of running water or electricity is going to be coming to every place run by BJP in the entirety of the nation? So I thought maybe I'll just have faith in their vision. So then I saw that they're not winning elections even. So I'm back to thinking that these issues might actually work. Why don't they? I have some conspiracy theories. Best not to get into them.
उससे कुछ नहीं होगा.
Hmm.
Because the act speaks of the possibility of a survey to determine if a particular site is an archaeological site within the meaning of the Archaeological Act of 1958, which is it has to be 100 years or more. So the moment you establish within the meaning of that particular
Ancient living civilization, no, that is not the case. See, there are pretty powerful Buddhist organizations all over the world, right? Because every white guy seems to do ever listen to anything as remotely Indian and becomes a Buddhist. So who has stopped them for all these years in raking up these issues, or looking for temples under, or looking for Buddhist monasteries underneath mosques or Hindu temples? What is stopping them until 2024? What has stopped them until 2024? And what is stopping them even tomorrow morning onwards? What the hell? They have enough money, they have enough resources, they have enough contacts.
provision section 4.3 that this is indeed a site which is more than 100 years, then the bar under the act stops applying. That means you can say that reclamation is.
In Bengal, if you truly want to understand what is going on, you'll have to have a conspiratorial mind. West Bengal is a conspiracy. Predictions after predictions of mystery sociologist and mine are coming true since his wrong prediction of the Lok Sabha elections. Because after that, we took some different routes in our analysis. And yes, so absolutely be as conspiratorial as possible in your thinking when it comes to Bengal.
Is possible once you establish it's beyond 100 years.
So you bring the ASI first.
Correct. That's what has happened here. ASI का सर्वे कराइए, find out कि ये 100 साल है या उससे पुराना है. इसके
और ये बच्चों जैसे काउंटर आर्गुमेंट देने के लिए जैसा दीपक को बिठाना पड़ता है पॉडकास्ट में. क्या इसका और कोई काम धंधा नहीं है जैसा दीपक का?
पीछे क्या था सब निकालिए.
Is the ASI equipped to go to the 40,000 sites to go and see it?
Well, if this country is serious about it, then it can ramp up.
Okay, so I have a couple of
really ASI के पास enough लोग नहीं है तो भाई उसका भी crowd funding हो सकता है.
them. The Sambal Masjid in UP, where we saw violent protests.
Atala Jaunpur.
Then there's Gyanvapi Masjid in UP. There's Ajmer Sharif Dargah in Rajasthan. The Shahi Eidgah, Shamsi Jama Masjid, Tiliwali Masjid in UP. These are three in UP. Delhi's Quwwatul Islam Masjid.
And is saying, what is your opinion on whatever is happening in Sambal? I'm not following the Sambal issue at all. As far as I know, there was some similar temple reclamation efforts going on, and violence broke out, and they have already found some stuff beneath. So if these three sentences that I say, which are all that I know about the Sambal issue, if that is it, then of course, yeah, yahi to hona hai. Pyar to hona hi tha.
And then Kamal Maula Masjid in MP. Now, these are some of the major mosques where Hindu community says that it was built over destroyed temples.
Madhya Pradesh has several such sites, including sites dedicated to Devi Saraswati.
So sites bole to temples which have been turned. So there are pillars or something where
clear inscriptions. I think there's a place called Dhar.
Yeah.
There are several such places.
So now these are the ones which are in court. Some of these are in court. Dhar maybe not in court.
It's not in court yet.
Yeah. So now the ones that I have listed out, these are in court.
Right.
What happens to these cases now?
They just, as of now, until
Tariq pe tariq.
It's in principle, it's adjourned sine die. Because no effective orders can be passed.
So now, unless in the Supreme Court somebody challenges it,
correct,
the lower courts cannot pick it up.
Until I think a resolution of the Places of Worship Act challenge is decided one way or another, the stay seems like it might continue.
Okay. Will the two communities in the entire country, will they now sit silent after the Supreme Court verdict, or do you think that the Hindu community has been too charged now to let sleeping dogs lie? Maybe wrong metaphor I'm using.
I don't know what they will do. I can perhaps come
because there is no one organization picking it up. It's not as if the VHP, like they did with Babri Masjid, and so it's not one organization anywhere.
Rishi, so what? At least he protected the people of Sambhal from evil capitalism. वो चाहिए ये तुमको भोसड़ी की electricity चाहिए, huh?
I'm happy with that.
You're happy with that?
Yes.
You
see, the thing is, there are two sides to it. One, and somebody decides to be, let's say, a loose cannon. On that front, I have a problem with that person if they don't go properly prepared. It's a serious issue.
Because it sets a precedent.
Sets a precedent.
How, guys? If anyone else can clear it up, how can Yogi Adityanath bypass the Supreme Court order and still not be arrested? How is he still a chief minister? Even there should be immediate orders for his arrest, right? What is going on really? I want to clear something out. What Adiman said here, I don't know if he's asking like just a sarcastic joke or stuff, or is this a serious question? I'll take it as a serious question and answer this. So see, none of you all know my name as a composer, right? So it's obvious that I'm not a very famous guy who's getting insane high amount volumes of work all the time. Especially since I'm an arranger, you all never know who's the arranger of any composer, right? So even if I do the biggest stuff, you'll never know my name. So even then, I have decidedly. I mean, I don't intend to reject all the stuff that ideologically disagrees with me. Like I have done background scores of at least 2 short films by Bengali Hindu commies, which were justifying love jihad. Okay, so but I had a job for a translation for a script, Bengali script, English to Bengali script, which was basically to be given to Bengali Christians or potential Christians in the villages of Bengal in order to convert them. In that, I just could not even. It was not a matter of ethics and stuff. वो just मुझसे हुआ नहीं. इतना annoying लग रहा था अंदर से कि मतलब yes, I'm still a struggling artist. I must not think of these stuff. या फिर no, this is against my ethics. I must not do this. वो था ही नहीं. मेरे लिए था कि ये भाई how much skill I put into the translation that will translate to in the ground to whether a guy gets convinced of Christianity or not. This I can't do. That I just could not manage to do. And I lied, of course, about my reasons and said to the client that I just won't have time to do this.
Dismissal or acceptance sets a precedent for the rest of us. So if you want to get into this battle, you want to join the fray, please come better prepared. Anybody jumps into this because they also want to be heard, then the rest of us will pay the price. Now, a centralized command structure also would mean that if a decision is taken that isse zyada hum challenge nahi karenge, that curtails the rights of the community, and nobody can speak on behalf of everyone. Because you see, some of these temples could be kul devtas and kul devis of a particular community. Aap hote kaun hai unka muh band karne wale? They have their specific rights under Articles 25 and 26 to say.
These are the benefits of decentralization. और भाई decentralization जब भी करोगे, okay, now thank God मेरा upper caste Brahmin surname वगैरह नहीं है. Thank God I'm not from the Brahmin Boito Caste complex, but even then I'm basically upper caste, at least middle caste. But thank God for that. नहीं तो और भी मुझे ही casteist बोला जाता कि देखो भाई casteism तो inevitable है, I guess, but caste like formations तो inevitable है ही, especially if you go to a decentralized society. Okay, read Emil Durkheim for this stuff. Okay, like what Max Weber has clarified further, that castes are just status groups, and in case of India, a very weird and a little extreme form of hierarchized family-based status groups. But notice how castes will appear in every place that there is effective decentralization. Okay, decentralized, non-भोसरी वाले, non-autocratic situation and कोई भी organization, team, देश चलाने के लिए तुमको caste like groups चाहिए ही होंगे. As an example of that, I'm telling you to go listen to the podcast of that Colonel something Kanwar, okay, or Kanwar, I don't know the pronunciation exactly, who has tattoos all across his body, the retired para-SF guy, who is 46 years old, looks like a 38-year-old guy. So he went to that podcast of another retired para-SF guy, okay, I don't know his name, something Prakash. So there, he was saying something interesting. Colonel Kanwar was saying something interesting, which I think will be agreed upon by every military guy, at least elite military guy, all across the world in any nation's military. Okay, at the end of the day, my foremost loyalty is to my core team. Okay, not to the branch of military he is. Okay, not to the my core loyalty is to the Navy SEALs. ऐसा नहीं होगा. Navy SEALs के अंदर या फिर उनके एग्जाम्पल में कौन सा मतलब पैरा एसएफ के ऊपर भी उनका लॉयल्टी नहीं है. उसके अंदर जो बटालियंस होते हैं उसके ऊपर भी उनका लॉयल्टी नहीं है. उसमें से जो मतलब अगर समझ लो कि कोई बटालियन का नाम है कि एक नाइस कॉफी मग बटालियन, तो उनमें से जो बटालियंस के भाग होते हैं कि वन कॉफी मग बटालियन, 8 कॉफी मग बटालियन, उसके ऊपर उनका लॉयल्टी है, ठीक है। अब कोई बोल सकता है कि एंड ही आल्सो क्लैरिफाइड, ही गिव अ डिस्क्लेमर दैट डजंट मीन दैट आई रिजेक्ट द ऑर्डर्स ऑफ द सीनियर्स, नो नो नो, वैसा नहीं होता है। बट माय फर्स्ट एंड फॉरमोस्ट लॉयल्टी प्रायोरिटी is definitely in every way possible other than rejecting direct orders and stuff to my battalion, okay, the very very small group. और ऐसा अगर नहीं हुआ, अगर हर चीज के लिए भोसरी के तुमको उत्तर देना पड़ता है सीधे डिफेंस मिनिस्टर को, वैसे गांडू नहीं चलेगा इंडियन आर्मी, ओके, कोई भी ग्रुप नहीं चलता है इफेक्टिवली, ओके, उस तरह का चुतिया सेंट्रलाइजेशन से। तो विच इज वाई इंडियन आर्मी बीइंग अ गवर्नमेंट बॉडी still functions, okay, because of this massive decentralization where soldiers are openly saying on podcasts that my loyalty first and foremost is to my battalion, बाकी सब उसके बाद आएगा। तो in that very way, think of a trad who says that my loyalty is towards my caste। यहाँ पे प्रॉब्लम क्या हो रहा है कि कुछ लोगों का कास्ट लॉयल्टी इतना ही है कि चूतिए भूल गए हैं कि वो और कुछ और भी है, like अमर्त्य सेन's brilliant quote in his otherwise leftist book that yes, at one point, at any given moment, a person might have different identities. I am a man, I am a guy of this and this age, I am Bengali, I am a composer, I am a YouTuber, etc. But at different points, you must prioritize different identities of yours, all of which are your personality. तो कास्टिस्ट लोगों का क्या है कि वो लोग अपने जो कास्ट आइडेंटिटी है उससे बाहर ही नहीं निकल रहे हैं, वो एक आइडिया है, वो एक ही आइडेंटिटी है उनका, एज इफ, जो कि इंसेंटिवाइज किया जाता है स्टेट से। स्टेट स्टॉप्स recognizing your caste, मनुस्मृति will go out of the window in the very next day, okay? तो बट सी, डिसेंट्रलाइज सोसाइटीज में कास्ट जरूरी है, जो कि मैं बोल रहा हूं, जो कि इरफान हबीब ने बोल रखा है उनके उस विख्यात या फिर कुख्यात इनफेमस और फेमस पेपर।
This is a Kuldevta Mandir. It is more important to us than certain other big temples. Can you stop us? Why? Because I have a rin or a duty or an obligation to this particular temple. And that's how this entire concept goes on. We have actually an umbilical cord, a hereditary relationship with this temple. And if that temple stands occupied, what are we supposed to do? How can you ask them to say, नहीं, आप चुप बैठ जाओ, ये 3 मिल गए ना, आप चुप बैठ जाओ? ये नहीं हो सकता है. If you recognize Hindu diversity, then you have to recognize the diversity of temples and voices. Otherwise, it's just let's say an ornamental phrase that you use
exactly
in the interest of showing plurality within the Hindu community.
Yes,
but there is a feeling that this happened in the past. The desecration happened in the past. So shouldn't there be a time period that, okay, from 1800 onwards, from 1900 onwards?
Yes, we have a time period.
So
712 AD.
okay, that's a rough overall comment. Let's say, do you have any special point in which you disagree with me, and then I'll show you why you are wrong.
Time period chahiye. Is this the first time I'm making this statement? No. Open my book, first book.
Yeah.
What would be the cutoff date to test what is decoloniality for Bharat? I specifically said it's not from the point when the Christian colonizer entered this country. I said it starts from the invasion of Sindh. I specifically said this. I knew this argument would come about, and therefore I gave the cutoff date in the book very clearly. It's not an afterthought. That we have suffered 2 different waves and 2 different, let's say, shades of colonization. And therefore, we have to apply different yardsticks and standards. If South America has determined for itself what should be the cutoff date, that is from the entry of the conquistadors in Latin America, we have a different yardstick for Bharat. So that recognition already stands. You want a cutoff date, we'll give you a cutoff date. See, somebody contributes money, builds a particular structure, good.
Aman, which precedents?
No problem. You broke something and you built something, then the communities have an existing right. Because Ram Janmabhoomi says, एक बार प्राण प्रतिष्ठा हो गया, एनर्जी वहां पे स्थापित हो चुका, उसका आवाहन हो चुका है, उसका कुछ नहीं किया जा सकता है until it has been deconsecrated. Desecration is not the same as deconsecration.
Explain.
Desecration is to khandify the murti.
Yeah.
Deconsecration is visarjan.
Oh, that so many temples have happened.
Exactly. Therefore, we are saying jab tak deconsecration.
Again, Smita Prakash as devil's advocate. I hope we'll expect the best out of any person. Okay, we won't get convinced that Sai Deepak is a casteist just because someone gets casteist vibes from him, and so we will not decide that or conclude that Smita Prakash is being a commie, or at least the Kushal Mehra AIM side of the argument here, and saying that, oh, so many. She's just bringing up a devil's advocate argument, but she is saying that, oh, so many.
नहीं हुआ है, and पद्धति के हिसाब से वहां पे एनर्जी
Is there a word for desecration?
that
Or
is
have you just
visarjan.
created?
No, I am saying desecration is to break and
Vandalize
defile.
it, break.
Deconsecration is to undo the process.
And it's a fact. Ashok Singhal got angry with so many, like 200 families. I think उनके बहुत सारे वो लोगों के घर वापसी भी हुए थे. तमिलनाडु में एक दिन या 2 दिन का एक इवेंट था जहां पे about 200 Hindu families converted to Islam because they were not being allowed to enter their temples. By whom? OBCs. And so Ashok Singhal decides, fuck this shit. I am done with let's say going on negotiating and pleading with anyone. I'm starting a Ram Janmabhoomi movement to destroy casteism once and for all in Hindu society.
So when you do prana pratishtha, you're inviting the energy to reside at the place. You can also ask it to go back, and this happens in every puja, in every
Bye. Start using that as a card.
yagna, in every homa. The purpose of, let's say, the purohit, there are 4 corners of the yagnapit, and there are different names for it. Basically, what they do, the first process is sankalp karke abahan karna. But after the puja, thank you.
Yes.
That is the same thing that can happen with an image or a deity, or let's say an idol, an icon, so to speak, a murti. That has not happened. That is the basis for reclamation of Ram Janmabhoomi, saying even after the construction of the disputed structure, prana pratishtha remains valid.
But then pujas never used to happen, no, after...
That doesn't matter. Puja ho ya na ho, ek baar prana pratishtha ho gaya, it continues. This is once a deity's place, always a deity's place, until it has been sent back through paddhati. It has...
और ये सिंपली लॉ में है, ये लॉ में है. ये फैक्ट बोलने के लिए जैसा दीपक को पॉडकास्ट में आना पड़ रहा है. दैट इज सैड. Kaladin, he's saying that he thought he was the only one who didn't know his Kuldevata. Yeah. None of us urban left-leaning families know our Kuldevatas. Unless they were the fake commie types. के हाँ CPM में घुस गए, सब पार्टी पोजीशंस भी ले लिए, जितना मतलब खीर खाना था वो भी खा लिए, मगर पूजा पाठ भी कर लिए, भगवान ATM भी है उनके लिए. हमारा वैसा नहीं होता है. Especially middle caste, lower caste commies, proper CPM families and stuff. They truly believe that stuff. They drink the Kool-Aid that no, religion is bad. I guess all the troubles that we faced was because our religion was bad, etc. So I asked my parents, I think last year, that I didn't even know that there is something called Kul Devta, there is something called Gram Devta, there is something and there is something called Ishta Devta. ये सब तो मुझे साई दीपक से पता चला. So I asked, who is really our Kul Devta? And then my parents said that we are Vaishnavs who worshipped Radha Krishna together.
Has not happened. So पहले वहां पे मंदिर था, प्राण प्रतिष्ठा वहां पे किया गया था, वहां पे मूर्ति की स्थापना हुई थी. That's the end of the matter. This is specifically the position recognized in Ram Janmabhoomi. Why does the logic of that position change with respect to the other places?
Because it was considered a one-off thing.
Exactly. Therefore, it is the number is the problem here. I'm saying number should be a problem. If Ganga Jamni Tehsil kicks in according to if it exists, exchange kar lo.
नहीं होगा ना. How many will you?
Adibhan, I think he kind of skirted around the issue. I don't remember where he was asked this very specifically. He said that I don't care about anything and anyone. All I care about is whether the rituals are being followed properly or not. And I was invited and I had been there. And I know that the rituals are absolutely being followed puri tarah se properly.
That means the tehzeeb doesn't exist. It's a myth. If it's a myth, okay.
No, Ganga Jamuna Tehzeeb is coexistence.
Right.
It doesn't mean you give yours and I give mine.
So truth, honesty, and reclamation have no place in this concept.
I guess not.
So it's almost as good as the Pakistani position saying Kargil mein jitna jagah humne le liya wo hamara ho gaya. And coexistence uske baad chalta rahega. And they will move and the next wave will take more place. Ye chalta rahega.
But ye hua na, Aksai Chin went away.
That's because
POK went away.
So therefore, that is because the so-called Indian state has chosen never to respond. We are being told this is a new Bharat. If it's a new Bharat, will it not revisit these concepts? Okay, simpler question. ठीक है भाई, in the context of 1992, you said ये हुआ वो हुआ, ठीक है. अब तो legally हो रहा है. ASI के द्वारा सर्वे हो रहा है.
Oh, अच्छा, ये सब हुआ. Shit.
Even that you have a problem with. A perfectly constitutional method through a court of law, through a court-appointed commissioner with experts, and through a specific provision that envisages, enables, and permits this kind of a survey, that too is unconstitutional. So what are you saying? Give up. So that these monuments that have been built to glorify particular invasion and domination continue. I don't care for the political aspect of it. I genuinely don't care for the political aspect of it or the cultural aspect of it. I'm on fundamental questions of theology. Why should one person who has built a certain place with his asta give it up on what anvils? And for who? What is this art?
Sai Deepak is saying that he is only approaching it from a theology question, but me not approaching from the theology question would agree with him with exactly on these sentences as well. As a libertarian or as even an atheist or a secular guy, okay, I'm not atheist, but you see, um, first of all, who gives anyone the right to say that you will not seek your temple if you think it's really hiding underneath a mosque? That kind of positive rights thinking is absolutely cringeworthy to me as a libertarian. Secondly, temples, okay, I don't know if very, very devout and religious people will like me equating religion or the idea of temples with anything so utilitarian or utilitarian and with such material gains and stuff. But if the gain is there, let's just bring it. First of all, any temple becomes the cultural congregational spot for the locality, and it becomes a great way for people to feel good by donating the money, which again gets used in for good stuff. Unless someone is skimming off the money, that's a corruption. That's not the ideal. That's a bug, not the feature of the situation, right? But पैसा भी छोड़ो, थेरेपिस्ट्स के डिमांड, साइकोलॉजिस्ट के डिमांड तो बढ़ रहे हैं. A lot of it I can argue is because of the bad diet and because of the overall general glorification of the ideas of anxiety, mental health disorder, etc. But अगर अगर ग्लोरिफिकेशन के बगैर भी किसी का सच में मेंटल हेल्थ का प्रॉब्लम्स है, एंड वो तो बढ़ रहा है स्टैटिस्टिकली कि हर शहर में लोग और भी ज्यादा 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 साइकोलॉजी पढ़ रहे हैं, थेरेपिस्ट बन रहे हैं, एक्सेट्रा. वो सब कम होगा अगर वहां पे एक टेम्पल सिचुएशन हो, ओके, अगर कॉन्ग्रीगेशन हो, अगर तुम्हारा सर्कल बड़ा हो, और अगर तुम्हें थोड़ा बहुत विश्वास हो. ठीक है, नॉट इवन विश्वास. सी, देयर आर मेनी kind of urbanized Hindus who say, and I agree with them 100%, that faith is not the right word to use, experience is the right word to use for Hindu practices, and I agree. It doesn't even have to be just on the basis of faith, but if people get an interest in that and do find the nice experiences that come out of it, okay, and that can really help them keep their life in balance and in a proper direction in such a way that they won't require a therapist who's going to first of all charge you a whole lot of money. If he doesn't charge you a whole lot of money, it's probably an absolute horseshit of a therapist. And thirdly, they are going to get cut money from the $10 billion, $12 billion pharmaceutical industry. उसका डायरेक्ट इंसेंटिव है तुम्हें दवाई पिला के डिप्रेस बना के घर पे बिठाने का. ऐसे इंसेंटिव वाले आदमी के पास तुम कैसे जा सकते हो? एंड दिस इज व्हाट आई आल्सो डोंट गेट फ्रॉम पीपल हु हेट कैपिटलिज्म. डोंट गेट वेयर कैपिटलिज्म इज फूलिंग द फक आउट ऑफ दैट पर्सन blatantly, openly. Who does benefit? Who benefits capitalism the least? A vegan guy who works out and cycles his way to work. Okay, so you see how much that is opposite of everything commies do, especially in India, because in India veganism is done by allegedly RSS people. I turned vegan in 2015 January. I was not remotely right wing. I was called RSS ka dalla by all leftists around me. तो कैपिटलिज्म ओपनली तुम्हारा गाड़ मारे जा रहा है, और जिसको कैपिटलिज्म पसंद नहीं है वो बोला कि yes, this is the beauty of modern science and technology that I have access to such great mental health therapy and stuff.
Audience that we are expected to cater to.
Gave it up. No, give it up kahan pe? It happened
Where kahan pe?
hundreds of years ago, right?
Right. Okay. Gave it up in the sense, तलवार लेके आपके सामने कोई खड़ा हो गया.
हाँ.
Therefore, he is saying that maro ya bhago, and therefore that translates to what? Relinquishment? No, it does not. It certainly does not. How many examples of other, let's say, sites do you want where there were continued waves of resistance, just as Ram Janmabhoomi? The problem with the understanding of the Ram Janmabhoomi case is that we think of it as an exceptional situation where that is perhaps the only site for which there was constant resistance and let's say defiance. No, that's not the case. Kashi bhi to kya hai? So who am I actually representing? I am representing the royal family which is reclaiming the Razia mosque because that was the original place according to them. And who's Razia? The same Razia that Justice Nariman actually extolled in a speech saying Razia Sultana was a feminist ruler, Bharat has produced all of this. It's the same person. There are records to this effect. So I think instead of dropping, let's say, numbers as a bogey, let's speak facts and solutions. Solutions hai. There's a clear methodology that the Supreme Court has shown through its Ayodhya judgment. You don't want even that. Then I think there's a serious problem where on the one hand, the Places of Worship Act will not allow us to reclaim. then state control of Hindu temples will deprive us of autonomy, and the Waqf Act effectively enables expansionism. What are we exactly enabling as a
So these
constitutional
two
secularism?
can't coexist.
They, according to me, are three uncomfortable cohabitants. One cannot exist as long as the other does. And if all three exist, they come at the detriment and to the peril
Of society.
the civilization, Sanskriti, Bharatiya society.
Okay.
First of all, that's not the law. And secondly, it should not matter what is the law. But anyway, even on the moral side, that can't be an argument. But thirdly, what's the definition of an unbroken chain of struggle, bro? Unbroken chain kya matlab? How much of a gap would satisfy someone giving this argument that yes, this is just a gap and the chain of struggle is still going on? Okay, मान लो कि 1787 में किसी ने टेम्पल रिक्लेम करने का कोशिश किया वहां पे, जो कि शायद डिस्ट्रॉय हुआ था 1750 में, ठीक है. एंड फिर एक एफर्ट होता है 1810 में, फिर एक एफर्ट होता है 1830 में. अब 200 साल बाद ये सब तो लगेगा ना, हाँ कितने बार वो अटेम्प्ट्स हुए थे, जैसे कि राम जन्मभूमि के केस में भी है कि 75 attempts in what 400 years, right? So the people who are trying to reclaim it now through the legal recourse, it's just a continuation of that so-called broken chain of struggles. Okay.
Now, this a noted historian, Richard Eaton, has written several books. He says that it's not just these dozen odd mosques in UP and Madhya Pradesh and all. There are at least 80 instances. He says 80 instances of mosques in India where evidence of prior temple desecration is fairly certain.
Okay.
This is what he says. Now, there are many, there's a lot of literature available. Correct. And everybody will have a different number. And there's Sitaram Goel, this historian.
Temples, yeah. What happened to them, volume 1, 2.
So he says, correct.
They said 2,000 temples and that's the tip of the iceberg.
And 1,000 temples.
2,000.
2,000?
And all these temples.
show off kar raha hai kya?
Atala, Jaunpur and everything. They have been specifically mentioned in the opening chapter by Arun Shourie.
Okay, let's finish with Goel and then you tell me with Arun Shourie. He says, Mahmud of Ghazni robbed and burned down 1,000 temples at Mathura, 10,000 in and around Kannauj. One of his successors, Ibrahim, demolished 1,000 temples each in Hindustan, which is the Ganga, Yamuna, Doab and Malwa. Muhammad Ghori destroyed another 1,000 at Varanasi. Kutubuddin Aibak employed elephants for pulling down 1,000 temples in Delhi. Ali Adil Shah of Bijapur destroyed 200 to 300 temples in Karnataka. A Sufi Khayyam Shah destroyed 12 temples in Tiruchirappalli. Now, some of them, obviously, let's presume even 50% of them remained destroyed. The others couldn't be destroyed because they were it was made of stone.
Correct.
So they couldn't be destroyed. So uske upar mosque banaya.
Have you been to Jagannath Puri?
Yes.
Have you seen the broken idols?
Yes.
The marks of sword?
Yeah. I've been till Ayutthaya to see in Thailand the destroyed temples. So, I mean, I've seen that was by a different thing. But what I'm trying to say is you've seen destroyed temples, you've seen Buddhist temples come up on them, you've seen
cheap thrills. I think it might have been because of Buddhism. Vigilant is saying, you don't need to prove me wrong. I'm telling you, if the starting point of a conversation is casteism, then it's a red herring to any actual debate, as the terminology in this debate is neither understood nor widely agreed upon by people. It also inverts the issue by positioning Jativarna as the issue where it's arguably the strongest system that ensured the survival of Hindus. Vigilant tribe, see, the problem with your argument is that it may or may not be true, but this view is held by such a small group of people that it's absolutely irrelevant to people who are trying to fight debates, the narrative war and stuff. Okay, so I have to always assume that right-wingers who disagree with Sai Deepak or commies are listening to my live streams, and there उनके दिमाग में since 24 hours casteism ही घूम रहा है, तो उनके लिए मैं भी उस जोन में ही रहता हूँ.
What's it called?
हाँ, मामा शकुनी एड्स तो है ही सबके. नहीं तो मैं जितना एड्स डालूंगा उतना एल्गोरिदम में YouTube इसको खुद से बूस्ट करेगा, क्योंकि नहीं तो YouTube doesn't make enough cut money out of it.
Mosques come up on them. अब उसको क्या करोगे आप? उसको अब वो मॉस्क तोड़ के उसको टेंपल को रीबिल्ड करोगे, कितने रीबिल्ड करोगे?
जितने हो सके. Okay, so let's flip the question and ask a slightly different question.
कितने? वो ये क्या आर्गुमेंट है? कितने? हिंदू विचारधारा मैम, ये बहुत कंट्रोवर्शियल है चीज, मगर it might have been a possibility. See, he is not saying that Hindus survived because of casteism. He is saying Hindus survived because of caste, and it's not completely impossible because decentralization saved us first and foremost. No, so decentralization depended on caste and jati and varna, not varna, basically jatis. So he is not completely wrong. I just don't say these things too many times because again I'm imagining that a far left commie is watching this. तो अब आपने बुलवा ही दिया तो हम क्या करें? It's not my fault. But also, wait, I'll get to it later.
Question. What is the acceptable number for the other side?
I don't know. You tell me. None.
Zero.
Yeah.
Zero.
Hmm.
Because when one was being contested, that was not acceptable. So we are being told zero is the acceptable number.
Yeah.
So that means even Kashi and Mathura we give up.
But it's not zero of just the other side. There is a whole bunch of people in this country.
He knows.
Millions.
Hindus in name only. Because they are being told, because we are being told by these geniuses.
What? He knows.
He knows. Hindus in name only.
This is really unfair, you
Why?
know. It could be Hindus who don't want any more bloodshed. Hindus who don't
अरे bloodshed is not on us. See क्या अजीब Islamophobic argument है bro.
want
But
any more.
why do they expect bloodshed? Who are they expecting it from? Why don't they answer that question?
Because when somebody makes a claim कि इसको तोड़ो फिर से
तो
बनाओ.
अब जवाब दो भाई कोर्ट में हमें मतलब you prove us wrong in court, evidence for evidence के जवाब में तलवार क्यों उठाए भाई?
ये क्या अजीब सिचुएशन है कि लीगल रिकोर्स को लोग बोल रहे हैं कि नो दिस इज नॉट फेयर. कोई इक्वालिटी मांग रहा है. हिंदुत्व क्या है? इट्स अ फाइट फॉर गॉडडैम इक्वालिटी. Sai Deepak might not be fully just for equality, which is why he opposes the UCC. Not that vehemently these days. He may ask for some special things just for Hindus and stuff. But the overwhelming majority of the Indian right-wing movement says that भाई हमको लवड़े हम meritocratic है ऐसे ही हमको सिर्फ equal rights दीजिए please. तो equal rights का demand भी is a fascist concept. Legal recourse is a casteist concept. Now, let's get into one possible problem with temple reclamation that has been also brought up by Kushal Mehra, Abhijit Mitra, etc., which is that some temples allow specific castes, specific varna wale priests. Okay, वहां पे क्या होगा? Will we allow that evil casteism to go on? यहाँ पे मेरा एक ही उत्तर है कि if that temple is run by the government, then it inherently is a government institution, and in government institutions, casteism cannot go on. If it is privately run temple, or it's a crowd-funded temple by the village for the village, etc., then do it. Because otherwise, the insane thing that's going to happen that if it's a government institution where the government is supposed to prevent casteism happening in the purohit employment, etc., government will have to hold examinations to check the knowledge of proper Vedas and stuff of every varna, and everyone will have to, we have to assume that everyone from every jati and varna will even apply for that purohit position. What a waste of taxpayer money.
यहाँ पे prove us wrong, defeat us in court, then the Hail Mary pass comes in. मतलब पूरा institution सारा मतलब this and that. That is what we're being told.
So this
is नाचने जाने आंगन टेढ़ा.
So you can't say that Dushyant Dave is Nachna Jane Angan
I am
Teda.
not taking any names.
Okay, I'm taking no.
Then you take the responsibility.
I'm taking name. He's saying that the judiciary in India, and I'm quoting. I'm not saying I am saying it. He's called it a majoritarian judiciary.
Oh,
and he says,
when the electoral bond judgment was given, तब क्या हो रहा था?
Yeah, nice place to pause, bro. But what Hindu Vichardhara ma'am said, वहाँ पे एक और thing I want to bring up, that whether casteism or caste was one of the reasons for the decentralization which prevented, or even at all if decentralization was the reason that we didn't convert, etc. But bhai, remember that everything has its side effects and I mean bad effects and pros and cons. सब चीज का सब phenomenon का ही होता है भाई. तो वो जो decentralization है, इतना जो castes में हम divided थे और है etc., उसका एक तो एडवांटेज है कि इसके वजह से ही हम कन्वर्ट नहीं हुए, ठीक है. मगर इसका ही साइड इफेक्ट है कि हमारा लो ट्रस्ट सोसाइटी है. दुनिया में जहां जाओ, स्पेशली इन फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड कंट्रीज और इवन क्रिश्चियन एरियाज ऑफ इंडिया एक्सेट्रा, लाइक कुशल मेहरा वाज went to the Prince podcast. Okay, it's not podcast, it's basically a news type formation only. So setup. So he had gone there to discuss Khalistan just 2-3 days back. So there again Kushal was bringing up how much of a low trust society even the tier 2, tier 3 villages of Canada are. People, like if you go to a farmer's house, a farmer leaves his vegetables in a टोकरी and is chilling inside his home. रेट बता दिया गया है, साइड के एक टोकरी में तुम जाके खुद से अपना पैसा रखोगे, फल उठाओगे और एक बेल दबा दोगे कि हाँ मैंने कुछ खरीद लिया. दैट्स द काइंड ऑफ ट्रस्ट. तो वैसा ट्रस्ट हाई ट्रस्ट सोसाइटी हमारा नहीं है. एंड आई थिंक इट्स बिकॉज ऑफ कास्ट. एंड आई थिंक इट्स बिकॉज ऑफ दैट लो ट्रस्ट दैट नो वन इवन कन्वर्टेड इन द फर्स्ट प्लेस. कि भाई ये मुझे कुछ फालतू का चीज बेच रहा है. आई डोंट इवन ट्रस्ट दिस मिशनरी इनफ टू कन्वर्ट मी. एंड so and even I have lived in the hills of Bengal, right, with Christian Nepalis and Hindu Nepalis all around me, although it's probably majority Christian. I'm not sure. Most of the people I knew were Christians. So, and again, it was an insanely high trust society. And again, the thing that Kushal mentioned about Canada also happens in Mizoram. Pretty Christian. And then Scotland, etc. People who go to Europe for the first time, Indians, or they have to come back from the holiday, or who have lived there, who never want to come back, repeatedly say this, that my God, the amount of trust in the society, I just can't stand Indian society anymore after that. Like I have a friend who has just come from USA for the holidays for 1 month, for 3 weeks and stuff. She can't function in Indian society, in the cars and buses of India, okay, because she's used to such a high trust society. तो हाई ट्रस्ट सोसाइटी का एडवांटेजेस है, डिसएडवांटेजेस है. डिसएडवांटेज क्या है? स्कॉटलैंड में हाई ट्रस्ट सोसाइटी है. उनका इतिहास क्या है? आज एक थप्पड़ पड़ेगा, मुस्लिम बन जाएंगे. उसके पहले एक थप्पड़ पड़ा था, प्रोटेस्टेंट बन गए थे. उसके पहले एक थप्पड़ पड़ा था, कैथोलिक्स बन गए थे. तो रिमेंबर, नथिंग हैज इन्फिनिट वैल्यू. If you do believe that not converting is of infinite worth, then of course low trust society is of course of infinite value in the first place. But if it was not, and you are okay with going on converting with every new fad in society in every 200 300 years or 500 years or even 1000 years, then of course you might actually prefer a low trust society. क्योंकि जब तक जिंदा है बुस्टी के, तब तक तो बढ़िया मजे का जिंदगी चल रहा है. मगर जो कन्वर्जन का जो जाइगेंटिक एक वायलेंस का एरा होगा, मतलब कोई कन्वर्ट करने आएगा, लोग थोड़े बहुत रेजिस्ट करेंगे, फिर मार पड़ेगी, मार पड़ने के बाद नया कल्चर के साथ एकोमोडेट करना पड़ेगा. ये सब बार बार फेस करना पड़ा है. आज तुम 2020 में जाके या फिर 24 में जाके अचानक से स्कॉटलैंड में जाके लो ट्रस्ट जो सोसाइटी देख रहे हो, वो तो तुम्हें नहीं मिलता जब वो लोग पहली बार प्रोटेस्टेंट बन रहे थे. ठीक है, सेंट एंड्रूज, अगेन अ प्लेस आई वांट टू विजिट समडे, has this famous university of St. Andrews, where Declan Quigley actually studied, and it's a beautiful place. तो वहां पे the main churches are absolutely demolished, broken, because they were Catholic churches broken down by Protestants. Now that entire city and the country is Protestant. What the fuck? हाई ट्रस्ट सोसाइटी बना के ये उखाड़ा है तुमने. तो अब आई एम नॉट फुली डिसाइडेड ऑन दिस, बट you guys think and pick which side you want to be on. A fun, nice high trust society which gets fucked every 500-600 years or so, or a low trust society that forever has the pretty much same culture. Like I went to Indian Museum in Kolkata, oldest museum in Asia, and it was such a breathtaking moment for me, seeing a 500 AD Ganesha Murti. Who in the world today worships something that was worshipped even in 500 AD? Everyone has 500 AD murtis all over the world, in every museum. We are the only ones still worshipping them.
Then
So many verdicts which have gone against the government. See, let's look at this. I don't hold brief for the government, and nor do I wish to. The government will defend itself. My point is very simple. Community's interest, community's rights, can they be?
Oh, acha, very good point, ma'am. I did not even know this. Holy shit. So you see, decentralization always prevents you from conversion. मगर कास्ट के अंदर तो डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन नहीं है. तो देखो, कास्ट खुद जाके अगर पूरा कन्वर्ट हो गया तब गया सिर्फ. तो वो सेम प्रॉब्लम, जो प्रॉब्लम स्कॉटलैंड ब्रॉडली फेस कर रहा है, वो सेम का सेम प्रॉब्लम कास्ट में ही फेस हो गया.
Pegged within the four corners of the constitution, period. And I am saying, prove the so-called majoritarian conspiracy and historical revisionism by coming to court.
Start, Jack. You might have missed a bit of our live stream. I have approached this in the live stream. Try to see it from the beginning once again. Short answer is that whoever thinks there is a place of worship that they have from their religion hiding under another place of worship currently from another religion, approach the fucking court, and end of story.
आपके जो विटनेसेस हैं, either they are unreliable during राम जन्मभूमि, कि आधे तो भाग ही जाते हैं, पलायन करने में मतलब नंबर 1 है. आर्टिकल्स लिखना जानते हैं, and they know how to hold forth on, let's say, comfortable platforms before, let's say, sympathetic audiences. But when it comes to actually proving their point before a court of law on the anvils of evidence, even that you didn't have the, let's say, the ability to do.
Justice Nariman, he called it mockery of justice on what happened. Why didn't he come to court at that point of time? Why didn't he say anything? Why are these people saying it after Justice Chandrachud has demitted office?
See, I think it's very unfair when members of a particular institution basically say that this institution has gone downhill after my exit. That I think is too much of a statement to make. And two, some of his statements, both on history and especially contentious aspects of history and his specific, let's say, points on the Ram Janmabhoomi case, are as inaccurate and incorrect as they can get. To say that there was no finding whatsoever from the Supreme Court on the existence of a temple underneath the disputed structure, call it only the disputed structure and nothing else, is false. It's provably, demonstrably, and patently false. Read the judgment. Read the Allahabad High Court judgment. Read the addendum to the judgment of the Supreme Court, and you will see that there are instances where they say, Guru Nanak visits the site once, mandir tha. Guru Nanak baad mein aate hain, mandir nahi tha. Okay, to beech mein kya aaya? Zalzala. Hua kya bhai wahan pe? And there are corroborating records. And you're telling me that a general pattern of behavior that has been witnessed across the subcontinent and across the world, you're telling me suddenly did not happen here. So we are not the playground for expansionist ideologies. We are only asking for what belongs to us through a court of law. What is unreasonable about this position? You can write articles, use your historians to, let's say, pixelate portions of this country's history, brainwash people, generations of people.
Vigilant Tribe, I have as much evidence for low trust society of India being a result of our castes as you have for saying that Jati and Varna prevented people from converting wholesale to Christianity or Islam.
And when called to court to say, itna hi matlab hamara jo position itna betuka hai, to aake proof to kar do bhai tum court mein. Na, that you will not do.
But in all these, now what he's saying is, Justice Nariman said that the court stopped, Supreme Court stopped short at identifying the mandir. Did it stop?
The Supreme Court stopped short of identifying who was responsible for destruction of the temple. It never stopped short of identifying the existence of a temple underneath the structure, because there's a very clear discussion of the pillars that were actually unearthed. Do you know the kind of resistance that was given before the Allahabad High Court, when the High Court, I think in 89, I don't know exactly when, ordered excavation? ASI's excavation was being resisted by the other side, and there's a judgment exclusively on why that particular operation or that particular exercise needs to be undertaken. Why do you not want stuff to be unearthed? ऐसा क्या डर है भाई? आपके हिसाब से तो कुछ नहीं हुआ था. The Dhara of Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb was flowing everywhere.
कहाँ unearth करोगे ना? लोगों के घर बन गए हैं. Everybody is now terrified.
भाई ये फिर से same argument के कहाँ? How many और कितने?
Right. That, oh my God, they'll come any day to my house.
Allow me to say this. काशी में करो, मथुरा में करो, शक्तिपीठ ज्योतिर्लिंग जो भी हैं, and जो जिनका पुराणों में रेफरेंस है उसमें करो. We are not saying हर गली की मंदिर में करो. At least major sites, yeah.
Sambhal is now a major site.
It was a major site. Dhar is a major site. All those sites.
Bhai, if it's not a major site, who's even going to pay the lawyer? हाँ, तुम हर जगह पे pro bono lawyer ढूंढोगे, तो it's going to end up being a major site anyway. Only that it's going to end up happening for the major sites anyway. Roshan Singh, I am not at all educated to have even an opinion on this. I don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing, but I intend to see Kushal Mehra's discussion of this fully. Uske baad I'll get some perspective on this.
Which find some scriptural reference through the Puranas or through a Sthal Puran, at least uska to karo, because they will have identified communities who have a direct relationship with a particular institution. We don't need to start with the number of 40,000. At the same time, we can't start with the ridiculous number of 0.
But what if the Muslim community turns around and say कि तुमने यहाँ पे रेल भवन बनाया, रेल भवन के नीचे हमारा मदरसा हुआ करता था, ये
देखिए उसके नीचे क्या हुआ करता था ये भी देख लेते हैं. That's the point about the Waqf claim. So here's the point. Your claims, they rest on the strength of your claims, not on evidence.
And right. And Ram Kumar Krishnan is bringing up a good argument. See, what you are saying, what happened is exactly for the reasons that Hindu Vichardhara ma'am here pointed out, that some castes wholesale converted themselves. Okay. So if the castes who are certain cogs in the decentralized wheel of Hindu society, but those cogs themselves are not further wheels, right? They are centralized small units of power, okay, and honor, etc. and their consumption patterns. तो उसमें अगर डिसीजन हो जाता है कि हम कन्वर्ट करने वाले हैं, तब कोई नहीं रोक पाएगा. तो then so therefore you see broadly, if you zoom out from the map of India, it's been largely a victory of Indian society and Hindu society that we have not converted. Some pockets, of course, were convinced. Nothing ever happens 100%, right? So in that way.
And the owners, unfortunately, in that context, turns on the party which wants to resist that particular claim. You now prove why it doesn't belong to you. Whereas
or वैसे Ramkumar Krishnan, there is, after all, insane amounts of dollars being pushed and vomited onto those societies. There have been threats and stuff. So everything is not going to be fought on the basis of just whether it's a decentralized society fighting the idea of a centralized propaganda machine. Okay, प्रोपागेंडा मशीन है, उसके ऊपर $billion है, उसके ऊपर स्टेट इंसेंटिव्स दे रहे हो, उसके ऊपर है कि पहले मतलब तलवार से गला भी काट दिया जाता है. कितना चीज सर्वाइव करेंगे? सर्वाइव किए हैं क्योंकि हम डिसेंट्रलाइज्ड और लो ट्रस्ट सोसाइटी है. वो सब सर्वाइव करने के बाद अभी भी हमारा हिंदू मेजॉरिटी एटलीस्ट नाम पे बच गया है.
Here, when we are willing to prove that it belongs to us, we are being stopped from actually doing that through a process of evidence in court. How does this work? Yeah.
Where is Mr. Sociologist? He would have loved this comment so much. Gautam Varun's comment.
So on the one hand, there's a legislation that gives you a free pass. And there's another hand, there's a legislation that...
Yeah, A.K. Brahmo, he's screwed it up. But these things happen because he's going on speaking and we घटिया प्रश्न के बाद घटिया प्रश्न आ रहे हैं इसलिए. But yes, I think he would have meant if there was a different podcast and he was asked to elaborate on this, I think he would have said that it will go on, it will end up happening to significant sites only because हर छोटे छोटे गली में जो मंदिर तोड़े गए हैं उनके लिए कोई टीम इकट्ठा करके लॉयर वायर हायर ही नहीं करेगा. तो वो होगा कैसे? अगर होता भी है, so what? That part तो Sai Deepak has clarified, no, already 5-6 times.
Prevents me from presenting evidence. Tell me, how does this fall within the four corners of acceptable constitutional morality?
Who's going to pick this up now? I mean, you said you don't want to get into the politics of it and you don't want to get into political parties. But like I said before, the VHP had picked up the case of the Babri Masjid. Who's going to pick it up?
How is that argument defeated? First of all, king selling off their sovereignty is not the same thing as converting to a different religion and taking up different consumption patterns in food and lifestyle, etc. Secondly, even if that wasn't the case, so what? So what? Is your claim that castes are only and 100% good everywhere they have gone and nothing bad ever happened because of any caste ever looking down upon on anyone? Is that your case? So each and every incident of casteism has been a false lie made up by Karl Marx fans and Nehru fans.
If it's going to be random people fighting.
I genuinely can't answer the question. I will do whatever I can in my limited capacity. Vishnu.
अच्छा, तो कास्ट कन्वर्ट करे तो ड्यूरेस के सिवा और कोई इंसेंटिव नाम का कोई चीज नहीं है. सिर्फ डिसइंसेंटिव्स ही होते हैं. इंसेंटिव्स की वजह से कोई कुछ नहीं करता है जिंदगी में.
Is doing a stellar, fantastic job. I'd like to use this platform to recognize the scintillating.
The main point is that castes are inevitable. Casteism is inevitable. कोई नाम से करेगा, कोई दूसरे नाम से करेगा. पहले के जो नाम है, आज उस नाम पे फैंसी ड्रेस कंपटीशन खेला जाता है गांव में, और जो कि 2 दिन में बंद हो जाएगा. ठीक है, ऐसे अगर स्टेट रिकॉग्नाइज करना बंद कर दे कास्ट को. मगर जो कास्टिज्म इनएविटेबल है वो आज भी होता है. किसी ना किसी स्टेटस के लोग किसी ना किसी स्टेटस के साथ चुतिया बिहेव करते हैं. कोई चुतिया बिहेव नहीं भी करता है मगर स्टेटस अलग ही होते हैं. उनका कंजम्पशन पैटर्न अलग ही होता है.
Work that he's done in the service of the civilization. Yes, Vishnu Shankar Jain and his father Sri Hari Shankar Jain. Brilliant work, must be recognized and must be supported by all those who want reclamation of the civilization. And I think we need more such people. I'll use this platform to also make a confession because there's a lot of myth that goes around about me. I am not doing this full time. I do this less than 20% of my time because my professional time is dedicated towards, let's say, my livelihood. Vishnu has been doing this almost full time. So I'm using this opportunity to clarify a few things to show that he has actually done more on this particular front. I can say I've written a book, I've done all of this. He has done a few things. I have taken up specific issues. I will target only those issues where I think I can lend a certain degree of, let's say, representation, and which I think I can accommodate and which can coexist alongside my professional commitments.
So we spoke about Sanatana in the last podcast.
হবেই তো সপ্তর্ষি, কিছু এগ্রিমেন্ট আছে বলে বাকি জায়গায় তো ফাঁক পেয়ে এখানে ওখানে অন্য ঘাপলা পয়েন্ট স্মাগল করে দেওয়ার চেষ্টা করলে তো হবে না. সবকটা পয়েন্টই শুনতে হবে স্পষ্ট নিয়ে, সাহস নিয়ে. তাতে যদি ঝাড় জলে বা বিচি মাথায় ওঠে তাহলে বুঝতে হবে যে এখনো আর কি তাদের মাথায় ঢোকেনি.
Podcast that I recorded with you, you watch the incidents which are happening in Bangladesh, the targeting of the Hindu community and the Buddhists too, the vandalizing of temples, and I don't want to go into the details, but you're watching all this, there's one section which feels that it's upon the Hindu community in India to stand by them, to do something. But what can you do actually? You can't do anything. You can raise their voice in the sense in the international community, you can pick it up. So that, like in 1971, when the world didn't care at all, nobody bothered about the Hindu community being killed, raped, their temples being destroyed. At least now the world knows something is happening. That's the only thing we can do. What else can we do?
We thought once the world is apprised of the situation, it will result in action. We stand proven wrong. So it's not about knowledge. It's about the aesthetics of the victim. Hindus don't make for great aesthetic victims.
Aesthetic victims?
Yes, it's not a politically correct cause to support. So you will find Richard Gere supporting Tibetans. How many such people in Hollywood will support the cause of Hindus who are actually being butchered right now?
Not even
टिबेट को तो रणबीर कपूर ने भी सपोर्ट कर दिया था रॉकस्टार नाम के मूवी में, जिसमें एक भी भोसरी के रॉक गाना ही नहीं था. तो विजिलेंट ट्राइब इज सेइंग, अरे भाई, मुगल स्टाइल हैज बिकम सो पॉपुलर दैट इवन हिंदू एरिस्टोक्रेसी एंड जनरल पब्लिक अडॉप्टेड. यस, फेयर इनफ, बट दैट्स नॉट इंसेंटिव, दैट्स जस्ट एमुलेशन. जो that's another thing that always happens. But blabbering incentives and discrimination can't get away. The comment is not complete, or it was a typo. So anyway, yes, whether I blabber incentives or not, discrimination is not going to go away. Yes, but what is your suggestion of even discriminations going away? Because you are saying discrimination probably never even happened. You are saying that everything that castes did were great things, because anyone bringing up the bad things about casteism is basically deviating from the topic.
Hindus.
Exactly.
I haven't heard Sundar Pichai or any
None
of them speaking.
There is a concept of aesthetics of victimhood. Palestinians make for great victims for some sections of the people. We don't. My suggestion is this. You started off by saying, what can Hindus do? Let's turn the question around to a different tone. What can we do? What we lack is non-state international Hindu organizations with the necessary.
So if we don't read into intentions, what are we supposed to do? Just sit back and observe and not react to anything? What kind of a society do you want? We have to obviously discuss the intentions of any crime or any good thing in society and try to talk about that, so that those things, either the bad things don't happen or good things happen further. What are you talking about exactly? But some important question was asked here. Relax Lead is saying, what do I think of Bangla Pakko, etc. Bangla Pakko is a coping mechanism for Bengalis who have lost economically to everyone in India and have lost the demographic game to every religion and ethnicity in India. So that's a natural outcome to find for look for juju in every society. But as for whether they are going to they are a DMK type powerful group or not, they are trying to. They will, I think, in the near future. They aren't as of now. I think there's some shenanigans about to happen. I think some collaborations have gone on and are going on between Khalistanis, Dravidianists and Bangla Pakko folk, because a few days back when Diljit Dosanjh came, he's of course a Khalistani sympathizer allegedly. He came to Kolkata and did very specific things that usually impresses Bangla Pakko folk, but this time it was picked up and appreciated by even dumb Hindutvatis who don't get how narrative games are played and how minds are changed and manipulated, etc. First of all, he went to Dakshineshwar, Kali Mandir, etc. Fair enough, everyone must go, ठीक है. मगर जो खालिस्तानी है, जो कि गुरुद्वारे के सामने योगा नहीं करने दे रहा है, उसको अचानक से माँ काली पे इतना भक्ति कहाँ से आ गया? But the biggest tell that there is some collaboration and he was basically dog whistling to Bangla Pakko was the song he used to put up the reel of him hanging out in Dakshineshwar and in the coffee house of all places, okay, which is Ami Shunechi Shedin. It's arguably the most go-to and popular protest song by leftists all across Kolkata, and Kolkata is West Bengal in this case because of the narrative power, etc. Any protest anywhere after a lathi charge, before lathi charge, etc., people go and sing the song Ami Shunechi Shedin by someone called Moshumi Bhomik. It's a nice song, but I get annoyed by the song because it's sung by leftists so often. Address the arguments made, not read into the motives of the person debating. Oh my God, I didn't get into the motives of you. I got into the motives of the people who are converting or not converting. Your motive is pretty simple. You are just not educated enough on this. That's not a bad motive or a good motive. It's just that you don't know enough. But what is the motive according to that I have. What exactly is your argument? That caste did not matter. That only good things happened because of casteism. That whatever bad happened, you can say that, oh, they were just emulating good Muslim people, etc., or riches of the Islamic State, etc., or everything else was done by the British. What exactly is your argument? You have just given me 2-3 trivia of history, which I even agree with. They are facts, yes. But give me in 2-3 lines your exact argument on what the fuck am I getting wrong about casteism or castes in general in India.
City networks and the pull and the pockets to get the job done in the event state actors fail, or they are, let's say, they're crippled by certain circumstances or considerations. The state of Israel was created through such non-state actors and organizations. They created a state. And they were never more than Hindus in terms of numbers and demographics.
And when I say these things to Rebecca, all her Jewish viewers get surprised. They think that no, we studied the Torah so with so much dedication that's how we ended up creating Israel, and that's how today we survive. नहीं भाई, तुम्हारे बिलियनियर्स ने, तुम्हारे साइंटिस्ट ने सब मिलके तुम्हारा एक जूइश डीप स्टेट बनाया, जिसके वजह से सब लोगों को आज के दिन पे तुम इंडिया में आके कोई भी गांव में जाके पूछो कि हिटलर कौन है, क्या किया था, सबको पता है. औरंगजेब ने क्या क्या खराब काम किया था, ये भोसरी के हिंदुओं को इंडिया में पता नहीं है.
Never. By the most conservative estimates, we are anywhere between 800 million to 1 billion across the world. By the most liberal estimates, they are not more than 1.5, let's say they're about 15 million at best. That's 1.5 crores. What is that population compared to Bharat? They get the job done for their community. They resist, notwithstanding the propaganda and the vitriol that's spewed against them from the 7th of October 2023. They've been doing it. Why can't we? Because this community needs to realize the value of non-state self-reliance, because assuming that there is a change of situation, your priorities still exist, your survival issues still exist, the existential challenges that stare at you still exist, you still need to have a response mechanism. I've said this before, that perhaps what you need is a hard-nosed World Hindu Congress of organizations and, let's say, individuals who can congregate at a certain place, discuss deliverables, and act on those deliverables, as opposed to constantly becoming...
I am shrieking because I'm not Marcus fucking Aurelius. The thing you got wrong is that casteism is a real dividing line between imaginary left-wing and right-wing Hindutva. Dig a layer deeper than arguing with an overturned window set by the left. Okay. I disagree, and I agree. I according to me, yes, that casteism is the only thing dividing left-wing and right-wing Hindutva, etc. But what is it according to you then, if it's not casteism? More importantly, I said that even leftists are watching me, not just left-wing Hindutvadis. So between leftists and right-wingers, the first and foremost game is casteism. Because anything that you bring up in terms of Islamofascism, etc., the first thing they will say is that, remember what the Brahmins did? Unless you don't know any leftists in your life, therefore you might not know these things. But whether it's a left-leaning Hindutvadi versus a right-leaning Hindutvadi, or leftist versus right-winger, the game is absolutely all around casteism. Whether, like for again the Hitler example, in villages of India, in villages of any country in the whole world, everyone knows what Hitler did. On the other hand, what's the first thing that people think of when they hear India? Yoga and casteism, untouchability.
Event organizing platforms. Let's assume that I get called or somebody gets called. We'll get more visibility. यहाँ पे 2-3 pictures हो जाएंगे, then Insta पे थोड़ी likes हो जाएंगे. ये सब होगा. मेरी book की और बिक्री बढ़ी. ये सब चलता रहेगा. Has it had a tangible impact on minds? Yes, to some extent. I will not say no to it. I will not underplay it. But is it helping a person who's being butchered? At the end of the day, वही तो test है, वही तो metric है. The sheer futility and uselessness of
what's the essential metaphysics of dharma? Caste, jati, varna. In a way, you might actually be right, because I'm saying castes are inevitable, but not in a cosplay fancy dress competition way, bro. Whatever your surname is today, let's say your surname today is Vigilante Tribe, okay? Ajay Vigilante Tribe is your surname. So you are not from the Vigilante Tribe anymore today. You are pretending to be one because the state is incentivizing you to be, or you just have not gone out of your city or village, okay? The moment you do, or the moment the state stops incentivizing it, you will not be able to follow your caste identity, okay? You won't remain a Vigilante Tribe at all anymore. On the other hand, you might be in some other profession. In that case, you will form groups and associations and statuses and consumption patterns based on those things, and you'll form a caste of your own, and you'll have caste solidarity of your own. Okay, so castes are inevitable, and therefore might be an essential metaphysics of dharma, which is really eternal and sanatan, forever and after. But since metaphysics of dharma are ways of life, first of all, in one way you can say ways of life change. So your way of life as a kshatriya of yesteryears does not apply today if you are a nice looking fat professor in social sciences. Okay, you're not a fucking kshatriya anymore. On the other hand, it's still correct to say that it is a way of life, because that's how even today's society organizes.
What I've done became stark when I got messages from the relatives of people suffering there and the people themselves on a repeated basis daily throughout this entire period. Saying, "Kuch kijiye, kahin to kuch bataiye." For some reason, they labor under the delusion that I have access to higher powers and higher wisdom. I said, "Mujhe nahi pata. I have no access to anyone. All I can do is air this concern through my platforms."
If you think metaphysics is done without society and social mechanisms, congratulations, you live in your fairy tale land, and we will create a better society for you. तुमसे कुछ ना हो पाएगा.
If it gets hurt, sure. But ऐसा नहीं है कि मेरे बताए बगैर उनको पता नहीं है. They have access to better
Correct,
sources.
yes.
Yeah.
तो उसके बावजूद क्या हो रहा है? I can only say Bharat needs to truly secure this neighborhood and ensure that this neighborhood becomes a safe one for its core identity, which is Sanatana Dharma. You don't need to beat around the bush by calling it civilizational identity. Or kya? Sanatana Dharma, yahi hai. China has operated with that particular vision in mind, where the core Chinese heartland or mainland has been protected through creation of multiple buffer regions through annexation. That's what they've done over the years. Outer Mongolia, Inner Mongolia, this and that, and Tibetan Plateau. And China was never meant to be our neighbor. Tibet was meant to be our neighbor, and Tibet and China were constantly fighting. We were having wars with Tibet. Zorawar Singh actually claimed Ladakh. So considering that, that is how a civilizational state operates. We may disagree with the Chinese style of working. Maybe it doesn't work for us. Democracy works for us better. But you have to ask yourself, what is your priority? Long-term security, long-term civilizational security. It is
Bohiragato Rishabh Agarwal is contributing to West Bengal's GDP again. Thank you, Rishabh. Jai Shri Ram.
It's not an abstract concept, which is the pet peeve of the wine tasting elites of Latins. It has a real consequence, because when demographics change, you lose territory, season of culture, then you realize they're outside your gated communities.
So
बड़े दिनों के बाद नितिन जी के चिट्ठी आए हैं, and he's saying that it's good that Sai Deepak was or Brahmins faced an exodus. This guy is openly defending exodus of a people. You see how Jewish people succeeded and we have not.
So people in the gated community say, हमने थोड़ी ना ठेका ले रखा है. If Hindus get attacked in Canada, if Hindus get attacked in San Francisco, if Hindu children are under threat in universities, in Ivy
Right,
League colleges,
right.
if Hindus of Bangladesh, हमने कौन सा ठेका ले रखा है of looking
I
after their
agree,
welfare?
and which is why I used the word heroes at the outset. Community identity और community का value आपको तब तक नहीं पता चलेगा जब तक ये problem जो है आपके घर के बाहर खड़ा नहीं हो जाता है. तब समझ में आएगा. ये जितने भी आपके भाड़े के security guards से भाग जाएंगे.
See, it's of course very true, but also, have you all ever been to a locality or mofussil town or a village that is 100% Muslim, or like 95-99% Muslim? Any of those regions, have you been through them for like some hours, or for some hanging out, maybe for a picnic, or maybe you went there to live for a day or two with some Muslim friends of yours? Go to such a place and return, and the first Hindu you see will feel like a friend, and that's when you won't remember that, oh, Hindu society is so backward, or caste is low trust society. वो सब factor ना तब दिमाग से चला जाता है.
Secular state will have its secular considerations when it comes to protection of Hindus, and usually it's not in our favor. Then you'll realize, अच्छा तो हमारे लिए खड़ा होने वाला बचाने वाला तो कोई यहाँ पे रहा
Why are
नहीं.
you saying secular, it's not in our favor? Why?
Because by and large, if the perpetrator happens to be a non-Hindu, there are considerations that go into the decision-making process, even if it is restoration of law and order. If the perpetrator happens to be a Hindu or an alleged Hindu, they suddenly find their masculinity. Yes. How many instances of this do you want across the history of independent India, not Bharat? So, those who think like that, Mubarak ho bhai. Your myopia will come back to haunt you at some point.
It hasn't.
Well, if it hasn't, and I might as well bat for those who realize the value of it. I don't bat for those who don't understand the value of it. I don't claim to be the sole voice or whatever it is. But if at all there is a cross section of the community which deserves compassion, help, it is this segment.
The expats who the first generation, second generation now out there, they say that the umbilical link is broken because what happens is that now they are facing the backlash because they're doing very well, right? Now they're facing the backlash, and they're saying that now we are viewed with the same level when we try to form a unified grouping. The caste factor, the race factor, all that comes in. Hindu ya Sikh hai ki kya hai, Indian caste mein dekha jata hai. So you have the Andhra grouping, then you have a Telangana grouping, then you have in that the caste grouping, the OBC grouping, and now the Americans are waking up to the whole caste factor in this.
So when I spoke of decoloniality, there were a bunch of geniuses on social media who said, "यार कितना मतलब academic concept है." And I said, भैया जब तक तुम decoloniality की बात नहीं करोगे या mental decolonization की बात नहीं करोगे, जितने भी stereotypes भारतीय identity और हिंदू identity के खिलाफ इस colonial laboratory में इन लोगों ने इसका इजाद किया, उसका इस्तेमाल हर जगह पे होगा, and now we are seeing it. The discussion of an alleged breast tax, this tax, and Molakaram and all that, they talk about it. So history is being weaponized against your present and your future. So the job, it's at 3 levels. Address that historical, let's say, brainwashing or pixelation or the way they have fabricated it. Address that at one level. Then you need to have a societal, let's say, outreach as well, where each of these groups realize, अकेले तो हमें से कोई अकेला खड़ा नहीं हो पाएगा. We won't survive. You have to realize that. Learn to work with each other.
Retroave. First of all, then it becomes a faith system and nothing more. And secondly, that's not actually how metaphysics happens or metaphysicians operate. It's people who believe in a particular kind of metaphysics think that they reach those conclusions.
Collaborate with each other, put your individual egos aside. 3, there needs to be a political response, which means you need to start cultivating people in your respective jurisdictions who can bat for you. America passes of corruption as lobbying, karo, no problem. Wherever you have to wet the beak or dip the beak or whatever is karte beto, but make sure that the job is done. Then you also make sure that the mothership is constantly there to help you. So it's a two-way street, which means India will need to actively invest in the diaspora, be unabashed about its civilizational identity. You don't need to discriminate against, let's say, minorities, but you need to be clear about, bhai, ye hai to Bharat hai, varna Bharat nahi hai, baat khatam. What is that identity whose absence will take away the identity of Bharat is the simple question. Whatever that identity may be.
Repeat.
What is that identity whose absence will finish the existence of Bharat as Bharat?
Yes, Vigilant Tribe. Yes, this is absolutely a theology discussion channel. We are totally discussing theology right now.
If the answer is not obvious there, then I think we are deluding ourselves into secular stupidity.
This is a section which was not there earlier. It has just come, we've just introduced it recently. So I want your snap reaction. Doesn't have to be single line.
Yes, everyone does it. And गाली पड़ी थी सिर्फ ब्राह्मण्स को क्योंकि मेन गोल था डिस्ट्रॉइंग हिंदुइज्म. हिंदुइज्म में ब्राह्मण्स को रेस्पेक्ट दिया जाता है, तो चलो जिसको रेस्पेक्ट दिया जाता है उनको डिस्ट्रॉय करो तो पूरा रिलीजन डिमीन हो जाएगा. इट वाज डन फॉर अ वेरी स्पेसिफिक रीजन. आज तो जाके पता चल रहा है कि भाई ओबीसी से लेके वो महार का सब लोग नहीं किया है.
Statements. Asaduddin Owaisi, his politics, his
Yes, theology is very, very far removed from metaphysics, has nothing related to each other.
championing the cause of fighting the UCC and the others. What do you have to say to this?
Brilliant strategist, knows what his end goals are, committed to his vision, and has only evolved with time, knows how to address his home audience and knows what works with them, and knows how to obfuscate that very same message before the national media.
Yeah.
And I know of enough people who have fallen victim to that strategy, who don't understand what the jalsas and the takreers are about when they go to Aurangabad or let's say old parts of Bhaginagar, not Hyderabad. Therefore, according to me, there is a lot for the Hindu community to learn from, to produce people with similar commitment, with similar vision, with similar, let's say, ability to message unabashedly, notwithstanding the resistance or let's say the audience reaction. Even in front of hostile audiences, I have seen him hold his own. Whether he's right or wrong or embarrassed, that's a different issue altogether. But he will not run away from a particular platform. I've seen it.
Electorally, beyond Hyderabad, he doesn't have that kind of an impact in the sense that, he can cut votes and he can do that. But somehow his party gets battered at the hustings.
He's playing the long game. He's playing the long game.
But he's been around for 2 decades or more.
You have to realize that for a party which was limited to a few constituencies and portions of Hyderabad, for it to now have some...
Why the fuck do you think I need Hindu frameworks to be a Hindutvadi? Why the fuck do you think I need Hindu frameworks to even defeat leftists in debates? Why the fuck do you think I need Hindu frameworks to change laws or push laws? If Hindu frameworks are required to change laws, that's after we get power in the system, which we don't have at the moment.
Some kind of a national recall value where other parties fear their ability to undermine their votes or eat into their vote share is not a small journey. And this is not exactly, let's say, a BJP with a strong cadre based support with a vast network, so on and so forth. They have taken their own sweet time. You have to give this person time as well. And according to me, I've said this before, that he knows how to.
And calling me postmodernist is like Sai Deepak saying that decoloniality is bad because decoloniality was started by Marxists in a very specific way, and that how decolonialist scholars of Latin America and Africa apply it in those continents is exactly how we must apply decoloniality in India, which is the wrong way to do it, and therefore Sai Deepak is wrong to bring up decoloniality, even though the scholars of decoloniality and Sai Deepak himself had clarified that decoloniality must be done by any society as they see fit. Okay, so Kushal Mehra, for example, says that decolonization of the mind is very important, which literally means decoloniality. And of course, not in every policy, but every policy decolonization, even that's of course also called for by Kushal Mehra. But anyway, that in that same way, you think everything therefore comes from books of postmodernity, and there can be no other way of reaching that same conclusion or a similar conclusion.
To present his position, which is
Yes, Hindutva is a social justice game. It's not a conservatism game.
favorable to his community within the four corners of the constitution. That is always a tough game to play, and he does it reasonably well.
Reasonably well. Agree. On D.Y. Chandrachud.
I think as a practicing lawyer, I can say that the institution benefited from his chief justiceship and his stint because it made possible for a lot of.
This part is not that significant, but yes, how many people agree with me, etc. So you see, Savarkar, why did he go to England to study? What was he studying all day? Hindu metaphysics. He of course knew Hindu metaphysics, but obviously many more people knew Hindu metaphysics way more than him, who could have debated and discussed things with him on Hindu metaphysics. Back then, every upper caste in every well-educated family knew a large amount of Hindu metaphysics. So what did he prioritize? And where are all the metaphysics knowing Hindus in West Bengal? Where are their YouTube channels fighting leftism and communism? तो हिंदू मेटाफिजिक्स जान के क्या उखाड़ लिया? That's my simple question.
Of young practitioners to argue before the highest forum. He brought patience to that particular forum, which is otherwise extremely, it's short of time and it's an extremely sensitive forum. So to that particular office, I think he certainly brought his brand of patience and indulgence. And
digitization, putting it on camera, court proceedings.
According
how you think my views come from Foucault's books, and Kushal thinks Sai Deepak talks about following decoloniality in India in the same exact way that decolonial scholars propose it in Africa or Latin America.
Live streaming has two different consequences. I'm still not sure whether it's for the good or the bad. I still don't know, because where does advocacy stop and where does performance begin? You don't know.
Okay? But that's with the case with even when there was no live streaming.
No, I agree. But now the scale of the audience has gone up.
Yeah.
And maybe one of course, the optimistic way of looking at it is that sunlight is the best disinfectant.
Yes.
So therefore, obviously, they know that people are watching. Yeah. Any comments which are made off the cuff will also have some social media, let's say, repercussions, whatnot, assuming that they care about it.
Even
you cannot have diversity of representation on the bench. That's the first step. So a message has been sent. Every decision taken from that particular office.
Diversity is only in gender or everything else?
No. I'm saying in general diversity. Okay. Unfortunately, I don't think anybody can accuse our judicial institutions of having other kinds of preferences in terms of, let's say, identity-based preferences. By and large, it's not been the case. At least I will limit that observation to Delhi. I don't think Delhi suffers from it.
Okay. But Supreme Court?
That includes the High Court and the Supreme
Court.
Supreme
Court. Okay. All right. Annamalai, we're going to come to Tamil Nadu politics. But before that, why did he go off in between to Oxford and now he's back?
I think that was a much-needed break. Yeah. It was a much-needed break. It was a particularly toxic election. And you must realize the kind of language that was used in Tamil Nadu for him to run him down. He's almost my age. He and I think, are almost of the same age.
You get mistaken for him also sometimes. I've seen people put your...
No, my newcomer homie, newcomer in our live stream. So, believing my Hindu frameworks are not conservative. I'm saying that worrying about only Hindu frameworks and not the other stuff, that's a conservative idea, which Hindutva is not. Hindutva at its core is a social justice idea.
Your mugshot instead of his at times.
I don't think so. I think he's handsomer. At least he's handsome. I'm not.
Are bhai, strategy. See, I'm a libertarian. Strategy is decided by any individual that wants to give a strategy. Whether my strategy is picked up by other people or not, that's up to them, not up to you. I'm not forcing it on you. I don't believe in positive rights.
Two, I do
But
believe.
both of you talk in a similar manner. At least my mother says that,
Really?
you know. She says Sai also speaks very, very
Maybe it's,
fast and
right. So that's the
and-
Tamil speed actually visiting English and the gesticulation and everything.
Huh.
I think it was a much deserved break because the way they targeted him and they pounced on him. For him to have revived the morale of the BJP in a difficult state such as Tamil Nadu, which has been traditionally pitted against it for all sorts of stereotypes. And he has certainly increased the vote share, notwithstanding the losses that they may have suffered. I do believe.
We are going to skip the snap reactions. Let's check out his reaction on Omar Abdullah, though. That might be important because he kind of hinted at Shaila Rashid, I think. Oh my God! Why would you think I'm making a decoloniality point? Being socially constructed. Yes, and that doesn't have to come just from postmodernism. Because I have not read any postmodernism book, by the way, as of now. But anyway, different ideas can reach different conclusions even without going through one particular path. And I'm not making a decoloniality point right now. Yes, because I'm not trying to make a decoloniality point, because I'm not in agreement with Sai Deepak 100%, because I'm not a decolonialist all the fucking time. Now you see, you don't get analogies and stuff. There's a word called analogy in the English dictionary. So I was bringing up the Kushal Mehra argument against decoloniality as an analogy to your accusation of me being a postmodernist, which I may very well be, but I am not as of now, I think.
A slightly different kind of demographic representation within the parliament from the treasury benches, so that the youth base that you've managed to tap into for the last 10 years continues to be on your side.
Okay. Omar Abdullah, what do you have to say? I mean, the BJP kept saying that these three families are not going to come back to Kashmir, but obviously Kashmir has decided that there is no option to the three families.
Correct. So every time people said it's just a couple of families, they are the ones who are calling the shots. And
yes, vigilant tribe. Social justice comes from postmodernism in the same way that Lord Shiva is not Hindu, and in the same way there was no oxygen in the world before oxygen was called oxygen.
The rest of the Aam Janta will back for us, so on and so forth. I don't buy into that. I think the reality is clearer, simpler, and starker than we wish to accept. And the fundamental problem there, and the way they treated the Kashmiri Pandits in Jammu recently when the shops are destroyed and whatnot, that streak has gone on. It has continued.
You don't think that Omar 2.0 is going to be any different from the earlier one?
No way. It can at best be a facade. I do not buy into anyone from that particular region who says that.
By the way, I heard Mr. Sociologist told me right before starting the live stream that Omar Abdullah is heading some anti-caste-based reservation movement in Kashmir. Is that true? If that's so understandable. It makes so much sense for them. कि अशराफ हेजिमनी टूट जाएगा और मुस्लिम्स भी अपने आप में डिवाइडेड होके उनको तो समझ में आ रहा है कि ये स्टेट इंसेंटिवाइजेशन करने से क्या होगा, जो हाल हिंदुओं का हुआ है वो भी इनका भी हो जाएगा. So they are all of a sudden opposed to reservations. Wow.
They have change of heart, because I'd like to see how they respond to Hindu concerns, Kashmiri Pandit concerns. Until I see a clear position coming from them with acknowledgement of the atrocities of the past, according to me, I will not buy it. Those people who go out as representatives or ambassadors of the valley on social media platforms, when you push them to the wall and ask them, what is your position on what happened to Kashmiri Pandits? And what do you think of the causes? They say,
they should come back.
They said, no, not just they should come back. They actually gave a very different answer. You know, all that happened was primarily because Kashmiri Pandits were being typical Brahmins. And therefore, their casteist pride was the reason for the revenge or the retribution that was taken by the plebs of the particular state. And that is the kind of theory that is being pushed on social media right now.
The Abdullahs haven't said that.
No, they may not have, but people who we thought were progressive voices from the valley have started saying it. So Abdullahs may not say it at this stage, but see, proof of the pudding is in the eating. Okay. Have you helped the condition of Kashmiri Pandits? Have you enabled their return? Have you initiated action against those who were responsible for it? Why does 1984 get a particular treatment and the genocide of Kashmiri Pandits get a different treatment when it comes to clear legal processes to prosecute?
No, my usual talking speed is like Sai Deepak and Ben Shapiro, so I thought you were not getting my point. That's why I slowed it down so that your brain absorbs it.
With the perpetrators. You do that, then we'll talk.
Okay. Next, Rahul Gandhi. How do you think that the 2024 general elections showed him up as a genuine leader of the Congress party now? He's leader of the opposition in parliament.
There is
in the
obviously a
Lok
renewed
Sabha.
sense of confidence, and I think he's been on the attack in the parliament. That clearly shows that the electoral results have boosted his confidence and the overall morale. And maybe it was his opportunity to respond to internal detractors within the party itself, within the Congress party. But outside of that, I don't wish to get into party politics of it. My question is very simple. Are his positions good for Bharat or not? They are not. And if there is a clear external, let's say, motivation or goading of his positions, or let's say incentivization of his positions, then he may do well, he may do great, fantastic. I don't care.
What is external? You believe in the Soros narrative, that Soros is funding?
You must realize that the cabal or the clique doesn't work through individuals alone. Faces are just the faces. There are a lot of people who stay behind the scenes.
Deep state.
100% yes. And I'm not making any aspersions or allegations here, but I can always say that there appears to be some convergence of interest between what the deep state wants for Bharat and what is echoed by their, let's say, sympathizers in Bharat. Now, whoever those sympathizers may be. And
why whoever? You know who, I mean, you have pointed them out in various columns.
I haven't named anyone. All I can say is that deep state is the outpost of colonization and imperialism, which believes in the supremacy of the Western civilization and which wants the rest of the world to act to the tunes of the West. And whether the deep state and its orientation will change after the transitional change of hands in January, I think, remains to be seen. Because the deep state has managed to outlast every person at the top and has the ability to take them out one way or another. Okay, from Kennedy to Trump, we'll see what happens. So my suggestion is that in a game of shadows, if you think that a particular phase falls, it amounts to victory for you and a defeat for them, it doesn't work that way. They will have thought of replacements. Replacements for 30, 40, 50 years, because their vision extends beyond a decade, beyond 25 years, 30 years.
And if we or India wants to position itself as a Vishwa Guru at some point of time, we need to have a vision of the same kind.
We need to have a vision and a deep state to enable that vision. China has one by now. It has managed to create one in the enemy territory, or that is the enemy of China, which is United States.
Well, some say that India does have it. I mean, if you were to look at, there was one video clip that I saw of a
no, I didn't see Pankaj Saxena saying this. Why would he say this? What was his explanation of it? I'm sure he gave some explanation, right? So if you don't say that explanation, it's unfairly going to be probably see him in a wrong context. But see, Sai Deepak casteist at heart or not, I don't think in any situation he would behave badly towards any so-called lower caste person who may or may not be lower in status today, but comes from a surname that used to be in a lower status position in 100 years back, etc. But does he believe that any such, let's say, Hindu law, Dharmashastric law, which says that here in this situation, a lower caste, again, play acting, cosplay, fancy dress party, lower caste does not have the right to do this. He will support it, but also he will say, and he will even fight for the rights of any Hindu to not buy into that belief system and follow some other sect where that belief system is not followed. That's what I think is there in Sai Deepak's heart.
Netflix. No, I don't know whether it's a Netflix or what. In Canada, where the villains.
that.
You saw that?
I saw that.
The villains are Indians who are going about killing people, and
I think there was a Khalistan reference there.
Khalistan reference
Yeah.
also. That the terrorist is supposedly his mother was on Lockerbie crash.
That's the deep state trying to project that India has a deep
Deep
state.
state.
But the fact of the matter is, I don't know.
Okay.
All I can
Adiman, then it's just a gimmicky sentence to say if Pankaj Saxena has said this, because Hindu unity won't happen without Shatrubodh. Shatrubodh के वजह से ही unite करना चाहेंगे लोग. Unless तुम state incentivization of not uniting हटा दो, वो तो नहीं कर रहा है कोई वैसे भी, फिर भी unity बढ़ कैसे रहा है? That's because of Shatrubodh only, rising Shatrubodh. So there's no situation where there's going to be Shatrubodh free Hindu unity.
say is that if a deep state existed that wants to provide, or let's say protect Bharat's civilizational identity, then it would have found a preemptive response to Bangladesh and what is happening to Hindus in Bangladesh. And it would have.
Then to I'm casteist, of course.
See, the thing is this: I don't want. There are two options that Bharat has. Get them all here. We lose that space forever. As a civilization, Hindu presence goes. What happens to Dhakeshwari Mandir? What happens to English Mata? Every place which has the cultural and dharmic markers of Bharat Sanatani identity belongs to reclaimed Bharat, period. That is the vision that you need to pursue very clearly. And to pursue that vision, you will have to accordingly, plan your moves, your external moves and internal moves to enable that particular vision.
Yeah.
You think I'm going to pause a video about Sai Deepak on Smita Prakash where it's a reaction video and discuss my source of morality with you? Yeah. This tells me you are probably in your mid-20s. You are just a kid as of now.
सीए से आप यहाँ पे सबको लेके आ सकते हैं, बट अगर आपने उसको पूरी तरह से हिंदू मतलब ये खाली हो जाता है हिंदुओं से, then tomorrow they will say this never belonged to Hindus, just as they're talking about the existence of Pakistan 2000 years ago, as if Indus Valley civilization belongs to that ragtag state.
Okay. Udaynidhi's talent. What has happened post 2025 elections? He's like,
Nice
he
job,
was all
yeah.
anti-Sanatan and anything. Suddenly he seems to be quietened down.
He's bitten off more than he can chew.
Huh.
And I think
There's a
father
lot
would
of
have-
calmness now.
no, I think the father would have said, "Konjam vaai mudiko."
Keep your mouth shut.
Keep your mouth shut.
Okay.
That this is not a movie produced by your mama or your uncle or anybody else, by Sun Productions or Red Movies or whatever that is. This is real-time politics. We can perhaps buy a few theaters and make sure that the movie runs, but we can't do that all the time in politics.
Huh.
So know your place, remember your pay grade, and stay in your shoes. May have been the message. Plus, I think he realized that his loose-tongued comment inspired reactions from across the country. And for the first time, drew attention to Dravidian is poison also. Very clearly at a pan-India level, which I said in the last podcast.
In the last podcast, we
Right?
had an extensive discussion on that. Let me just bring in a little bit about Tamil Nadu politics. Talapati Vijay, how do you see his rise?
After Kamal Hassan's failure, he may have been somebody's plan B. Possible.
What?
Then grow up. You are too old to be this entitled. Come on.
What is the huge crowd which came? It didn't come for Kamal Hassan.
It's let's say a spin-off of his popularity as an actor. That's there. But I think somebody wanted a youthful face with a mass base to counter Annamalai in the future. The people can say Annamalai just lost. What are you saying? Those who understand his value realize that he's a potential threat to entire Dravidinist ideology. For the first time, you have a politician taking on not just a party, but taking on an ideology which is the foundation of those parties. Two, maybe they banked on Kamal Hassan's potential success, but he's too much of a solo act for him to run a Democratic Party. So, and these are accusations from his own ex-office bearers.
It worked for Arvind Kejriwal. Why didn't it work for Kamal Hassan?
Because you see, Kamal Hassan was taking the persona of his superstar image to politics. Arvind Kejriwal has worked on the grassroots. He's been a part of the bureaucratic system. And he's been a smart cookie who's spearheaded a few campaigns for, let's say, RTI and so on and so forth. He understands that. And I think he's a smarter cookie and a smarter operator than Kamal Hassan when it comes to politics.
How do you see Pawan Kalyan's rise?
I after my ISC, I wanted to get into JU with political science so that I could study international relations in the master's level. So I didn't get in, of course, but mainly because I couldn't finish my paper, because भोसड़ी के मुझे ही ऐसा टॉपिक दिया जिस पे आई न्यू सो मच एंड आई हैड अ लॉट टू से. तो मुझे टॉपिक दिया गया था वो लोकपाल बिल एंड Arvind Kejriwal and stuff, and I was a huge fan of that movement, and I wrote everything I could with that, and of course not taking the side of anyone. I in fact said that Arvind Kejriwal was getting more things accomplished as a bureaucrat with RTI and stuff. Why did he get into this activism, etc.? But वो थोड़े bittersweet memories याद आ गए.
Hopefully, I'm hopeful and optimistic about it. and someone who's managed to touch upon those issues which are the need of the hour in Andhra, especially coastal Andhra.
Is it all of Deccan?
All of Deccan would be too much of a statement to make.
Arey, what the hell bol raha hai? But you see, even though I got what about 69.75% in my IC, okay, and I got 70% in my ICSE, the total aggregate. That's because 2 days, 3 days before ISC also I was going around in band competitions only. So like I finished the main Bengali literature, the main Bengali novel that I was supposed to study for the Bengali ISC exam. It was Rajorshi by Rabindranath. I finished that sitting behind the stage in a band competition at NUJS, okay, National University of Juridical Sciences. साउंड चेक चल रहा है बाकी बैंड का, मैं तब भी बैठ के राजश्री कंप्लीट कर रहा हूँ, एंड आई लाइक इट सो मच. आई गॉट 86 इन बंगाली, कैन यू बिलीव इट, बाय स्टडीइंग राजश्री दैट वे, बिकॉज आई ट्रूली लाइक्ड इट. So in that same way, I do have a small achievement to talk about here. Before commies tell me that chance pe dekha, oh chance pass nahi to jeyute, that even though I did not finish my paper, even though I did not even get that high marks in ISC, even then my name did appear on the list at least. Most people's names don't even appear. My name actually appeared because of my paper, because of my answering sheet in the Pol Science entrance exam in JU.
Make at this
He's
point.
drawing as much crowd in Tamil Nadu as he's drawing in United Andhra.
I would want to see the reactions of the people of Tamil Nadu when he starts attacking Periyar. If he does.
If he does.
If he does.
Why take on so many battles at the same time?
That's why I'm saying that he should not.
Huh.
I'm saying अपने गढ़ में पहले अपने आप को आप स्थापित करो. Make sure that you have a clear position there and you address the problems of Andhra, which are enough and more at this point. Conversion at a rampant scale, FCRA violations at a rampant scale, all sorts of land grabbing, all the things that Jagan has done in terms of building palaces and rather palatial houses on sacred Hindu sites such as Rishikonda, which apparently is a place that is associated with Parashurama. He's literally balded that hill and he's built a house there, a palatial house.
There was this whole thing about Parashurama Kshetra, which they were going to do, unite all the Parashuram.
Who? By Pawan Kalyan?
No, not Pawan Kalyan. By Hindus in Karnataka, in Kerala, in Andhra. Nothing seems to have happened to that. It just fell flat.
No, I think there are some organic efforts on the ground by people, but you see, as much as I value the contribution of an individual, sometimes you need a hub for the spokes to work in coordination.
Do you see anybody coming up in that?
I don't know. I genuinely don't know. To be honest, over the last 8 months, I've taken a backseat from all of this to focus on my practice commitments.
Exactly. This is what happens. Ultimately, हम सबका EMI होता है ना?
No, more than the EMI, the idea was, जो आपकी core competence है, उसमें अपने आप को पहले establish कर लीजिए, तब जाके आप बात कर पाएंगे. I didn't see the point in being public intellectual, social media, this person, that person. I have no such interest. I'm a lawyer. I'll die as one. I'm very clear about that.
It is casteism, but it's again casteism at heart, because it's sort of a victimless crime. You're not going around telling any son or daughter born out of a pratiloma marriage saying that, see, you are low born, bro, you are low born, do you even know that? वैसे जब तक नहीं कर रहा है तब तक वो casteism exactly action of casteism तो हुआ नहीं है. हाँ, वो casteist आदमी है जरूर.
The idea was cement your position here. इससे आप जो कुछ भी contribute कर.
Oh, M. Shastri, you mean the Hindu liberal framework, right? Yeah, that's going to be our next live reaction video.
सकते हैं, and doing justice and balancing your professional practice commitments and these commitments I will do. That is the limited scope of my mandate, at least to myself.
Well, you have a huge fan following on social media.
ये social media का hype चलते रहता है. हर I mean every Diwali now they're running that clip of 2018. I'm thinking please don't do it. I was fatter, uglier. Don't do it. Give me some credit. I've lost some weight. At least नया video तो डाल दो. ये तो मतलब हर बार WhatsApp पे आ रहा था. यहाँ से कहीं से please बंद करो.
Oh, what you're working on?
So ma'am, it's theology. So it's a 4-part series. So the two parts are out. Okay. Yeah, it was meant to be 1, then it became 3, and then 4, but it'll end at 4. The third part of the book, the series, will basically cover the period from 1924 to 35. Okay. So Khilafat was where the second book ended. It'll take the conversation from there to the proto-constitution, namely the Government of India Act of 1935, the constitution before the 1950 constitution. But I'll go back to 1763 and start from Sannyasi rebellion and how the Hindu consciousness has changed over, let's say, over the decades, and how it has now acquired a default mode of compromise.
Okay.
From its ability to say, ये जगह मेरी है, ये मंदिर मेरा है, मैं इसके लिए लड़ने के लिए तैयार हूँ.
Oh, see, I did not name call you as of now. Now I'm going to. Are Gandu. I didn't use conservative as a pejorative, you fucking idiot.
ये भी छोड़ देते हैं, वो भी छोड़ देते हैं, ये affect होगा, वो affect होगा. What we are seeing right now in the context of POW Act, ये दिमाग, ये जो विकृति जो आया है, ये कहाँ से आया है? So I'll be covering multiple movements.
Which subsume the Shakta spirit.
Totally. The Kshatriya spirit and of course the Shakti practice of basically saying कुछ भी हो, मुंडमाला तो चढ़ेगा अगर तुम मंदिर को attack करोगे तो. Very clear. So we are going through a phase of rediscovery Whether this reinforces the existing position of compromise or brings back the Kshatriya spirit is the question. And therefore, I'm tracing from 1763. I'll bring the topic to 1924, merge all the three books, and the conversation will go from there on. The final book will cover the conversation from 1935 to 1950.
So we look forward to having you first here on the podcast when your
September
book
2025.
Ayo, that is
You will state the right position of the law because you've acquired a certain position.
fair is the system because
Yeah,
this
is the last point and the most
judiciary means
important
nepotism hota hai. If you're somebody's son, grandson, daughter, that's how you get picked to be senior. That's how you get your cases. That's how the path to judiciary is. How fair is this system?
Smitaji, I'll tell you one thing. Nepotism is a reality of life, and it's a global reality. It just goes by the name of lobbying, connections, network, or whatever it is in some other places, and here it has acquired the name of Jugaad, nepotism. I don't think the existence of nepotism can be done away with. The question that we should be asking ourselves is, in addition to people who are second generation or third generation lawyers, do you also have enough room for first generation people to enter that particular space and establish themselves? And I don't think it is the fault of people who are second or third generation lawyers to be born into that particular lineage and to also opt for it. Okay, assume for a moment my child decides to take up the practice and he chooses to take up the same, or she chooses to take up the same profession. Is it that child's fault? So they will inherit a certain infrastructure, an existing set of clients, an existing set of beefs, so on and so forth, assuming that they're good. But take it from me, the profession is ruthless in the sense you can perhaps get by with a certain name only for a certain period of time. At the end of the day, market forces will prevail. If you're good at your job, you will certainly make the cut by and large. That's a different issue altogether. But allow me to say this as a proud product of the Delhi High Court, not because the High Court has designated me, I'm saying this. I had the confidence to apply because it is perhaps a shining beacon for first generation lawyers to practice and also to make a name for themselves. The tradition of the Delhi High Court is to respect people whether or not they have the gown, which is namely whether they're a senior advocate or not, as long as you come prepared with the brief. I come from practically nothing in terms of this background. I come from a lower middle class family with a family which has got absolutely no connection with the profession whatsoever. And this bar, frankly speaking, is, according to me, among the best in the world today for its contribution to leading subjects and also its treatment of young counsels, the expedition with which matters are taken up.
I called you conservative and you added the words fundamentalist and extreme, okay? And then, of course, liberal ethic, etc. So, if calling someone fundamentalist and extreme, allegedly, which I didn't even call you, is not pejorative, what the fuck is a pejorative? कौन से हिंदू फ्रेमवर्क में तुमने pejorative का ये definition सीख लिया भाई? Pejorative का spelling पता है क्या? ठीक से लिखा है क्या? Google देख के लिख लिया? I don't know.
A lot of people have shifted their registered offices to Delhi in the hope that they'll be able to access the jurisdiction of the Delhi High Court, because today this is one of the finest commercial courts. So, according to me, going by my experience of the Delhi High Court, if this model were to be replicated across the country, then I think it's a great model. But of course, being in Delhi, it has its own advantages. Delhi sabka hai aur kisi ka nahi hai. It's a cosmopolitan place, right? Because you can't say there is just one particular regional flavor here. Of course, there are, let's say, factions or lobbies across the board, but it's a plurality of it. It's not one particular lobby that heavily weighs over the other. And I say this as someone, as a rank southerner, likha hua hai, and the Delhi High Court has embraced us. So I don't want to use the word nepotism. Let's call it hereditary practice structures. They exist. I don't deny that.
एक और नाम क्या है hereditary practice structures का? It's called caste.
But there is at least 40 to 50% space for first generation lawyers. And if somebody were to believe that any journey is a solo act, even if you happen to be a practicing barrister or a senior advocate, it is never a solo act. Across the way, along the way, you've been the recipient of kindness and opportunities from people who've just said, ye acha karta hai, ye acha karti hai, isko opportunity de do, dekhte kya hota hai. Clients put faith in you. That's how this has happened.
देखो भाई, Hindu metaphysics in the judiciary. Oh my God. D.Y. Chandrachud was reading Manusmriti in the morning.
So I'm very clear that the Delhi High Court is perhaps among the best places for a young lawyer to practice it.
That's heartening to know. What do you have to say to the secular civil code, which is coming about, which was another name for the uniform civil code?
I think it's important to perhaps put some thought into the optics of the naming of it, which I agree with. But I certainly want to understand the end vision and the end goal, at least in terms of how does it look and how does it smell, touch and taste and all that. See, the point is, I'm sure, the powers that be and the people who are working on this, or who perhaps are assumed to be working on this, know what needs to be done. We need greater research material to come out with some semblance of clarity and the ability to convey and message. I'll just connect it to the first part of the conversation. Solicitors prepare the brief. The arguing counsel delivers the brief. Similarly, bureaucrats and others will put their heads together and come out with a document. But how is the document supposed to be messaged, conveyed, and articulated at different levels to different audiences? That's a different game altogether. This is perhaps one of those times where I think people will sorely miss the presence of Arun Jaitley and Sushma Swaraj.
I think triple talaq was presented well, the law. The 370 abrogation was presented well.
I agree.
On this, the work seems to have started already.
No, I think we
this
may
talk-
be even unfair here. I'll tell you why. Because Uniform Civil Code is way more complex than CAA or 370. It's way more complex, and I don't want to even undermine the seriousness of it. It's complex. It's a maze of personal laws, and it's not as if there is uniformity even in minority groups with respect to the practices, because from region to region it varies.
It varies, yes.
Right? You have to be very clear about that.
Correct.
How much are we going to interfere? How are we going to do this? You'll need a baseline study, a law commission report, and whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay. See, the point is, according to me, now that you know, thanks to the last 11 years, what kind of challenges can be faced on the street, in courts, and otherwise.
Yeah, and on NRC and all we saw
and all
that.
these.
Yeah.
So are you going to learn the lessons of these, let's say, episodes and apply it to this, according to me, the mega project? And what is the extent to which you're willing to engage with an external audience, like, let's say, Qatar,
Yeah.
when they chose to crack the whip, or anybody else with him who's willing to collaborate with Qatar, right? So you will have to find a way to message that, which is why I think this will call for multiple levels of preparation. I'm not trying to hold forth as someone who knows what needs to be done. I'm just saying these are tentative ideas.
Complicated also, yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming on.
Yes, Zeroth, even I love Vishuddha Manusmriti. I think we have found one or two things to disagree with. We have discussed the entire book. That was basically the first live streams we ever did, okay? तो वहाँ पे तो सब बढ़िया चीजें हैं. That's allegedly the Arya Samaji Manusmriti, where they have kicked out all the controversial parts, but the parts that there still exist in the Vishuddha Manusmriti, there are parts which are absolutely feminist and stuff, absolutely Marxist. I mean, pro poor people and stuff. There are sustainable things that can be done today, etc. There was one question I wanted to answer from Abir Zain, after which I'll go. He was saying that his question was that what do I think of Ramakrishna Mission's Jishu Pujo? So same thing, Abir Zain, that Ramakrishna Mission does a lot of good. It runs great schools, institutions, gives a semblance of Hindu values and metaphysics in their schools, which they can, because of playing these sorts of accommodatory and just politics and negotiations and stuff. And their motto being that যেখানে যেমন সেখানে তেমন, যাকে যেমন তাকে তেমন, যখন যেমন তখন তেমন. So they are openly saying that we are ready to negotiate and be flexible and stuff, but just let us exist. And they had to do those things to exist. You can say, why do it today? I guess they also think it's their tradition. Tradition hai to follow karo. It's the trads inside RKM who are trads in the RKM way, I guess. That's why they are doing it. But they are doing other things as well. So it's not our place to really say that. I mean, there has to be conscious, let's say, acknowledgement of to what degree we can criticize this particular aspect. We can criticize it a little, I think, not to the fullest, because after all, they survived as a very pro-Hindu and pro-Hinduism group, not pro-Hindu maybe, at least a Hinduism group under communism. Even leftists today have respect for RKM and stuff. ये तीर कैसे मार दिया? तो purist होने के चक्कर में अगर exist ही नहीं करते, that would be bad. We would at least lose out on so many good schools and universities and stuff. So they have a system in place which is not perfect. तो धीरे धीरे ये सब चले जाएंगे, I guess. These things that we don't agree with, or other institutions will come up who will do the good things that RKM does as well, or even better, and won't have those flaws maybe. So it is what it is, sort of thing. How many rice bags were you? Not a video. I was doing that just as a translation work. It was someone was going to do a narration voiceover of it in Bengali. I don't remember if I was supposed to do the voiceover. I was supposed to do the translation at least, which I rejected. I don't remember the charges. I think some 900 or 1,000 rupees for I think 5 or 6 pages of text. Okay then. Thank you guys for joining the live stream. Yeah, that's it. Thanks for joining. Bye bye. Good night. See you soon.
सहस्रवरूढं महाभीमं गुणाद्रष्टाम्बरप्रदम् अस्य युक्तं त्रिनेत्रं च कपालकर्णिकाकरां मुक्तकेशीं ललज्जयं पिबन्तीं रुधिरं चतुर्बाहु समायुक्तम्